Kungakwa zawadahan sios, ona angadaswa o handagali wadakwa. Ungwet su'a, gwegwaska njedadawa wet nuni ni gwat nigula dana de tinu haladas na ungwet su'a, tinu dohak ni gwat nigula. Agwegwaska njedadawa wet nuni ni gwat nigula dana de tinu haladas ni ikini ista ohun jage, tinu dohak ni gwat nigula. Agwegwaska njedadawa wet nuni ni gwat nigula dana de tinu haladas na ohun de su'a, tinu dohak ni gwat nigula. Agwegwaska njedadawa wet nuni ni gwat nigula dana de tinu haladas na onu kwat su'a, tinu dohak ni gwat nigula. Agwegwaska njedadawa wet nuni ni gwat nigula dana de tinu haladas na onu gat su'a, tinu dohak ni gwat nigula. Agwegwaska njedadawa wet nuni ni gwat nigula dana de tinu haladas na gahi su'a, tinu dohak ni gwat nigula. Agwegwaska njedadawa wet nuni ni gwat nigula dana de tinu haladas na gain tosla, tinu dohak ni gwat nigula. Agwegwaska njedadawa wet nuni ni gwat nigula dana de tinu haladas na gojo su'a, tinu dohak ni gwat nigula. Agwegwaska njedadawa wet nuni ni gwat nigula dana de tinu haladas na gondilio, tinu dohak ni gwat nigula. Agwegwaska njedadawa wet nuni ni gwat nigula dana de tinu haladas na ogwile su'a, tinu dohak ni gwat nigula. Agwegwaska njedadawa wet nuni ni gwat nigula dana de tinu haladas na ojido angoa, tinu dohak ni gwat nigula. Agwegwaska njedadawa wet nuni ni gwat nigula dana de tinu haladas na itisatagu on la diwalas, tinu dohak ni gwat nigula. Agwegwaska njedadawa wet nuni ni gwat nigula dana de tinu haladas na gali ni gawalage, tinu dohak ni gwat nigula. Agwegwaska njedadawa wet nuni ni gwat nigula dana de tinu haladas na sugwajia gilkena galakwa, tinu dohak ni gwat nigula. Agwegwaska njedadawa wet nuni ni gwat nigula dana de tinu haladas na itisata santana galakwa, tinu dohak ni gwat nigula. Agwegwaska njedadawa wet nuni ni gwat nigula dana de tinu haladas na ojistokwa su'a, tinu dohak ni gwat nigula. Agwegwaska njedadawa wet nuni ni gwat nigula dana de tinu haladas na gela ni agwedige, tinu dohak ni gwat nigula. Agwegwaska njedadawa wet nuni ni gwat nigula dana dachi dinu haladas na sungwai diza, tinu dohak ni gwat nigula. Ona wakali waho dungo nuwa ni zlada dogat tena zike nigoha nisigi aizawada sundala aizawasa, tinu dohak ni gwat nigula.
Siguli swagwag gal hindi niogets wagi sli wagi nibak daloda oni da gwa wanage ani bojo dante okinapi how and yonko for being here. Welcome in to everyone, and if you're here for the first time or you just don't understand what I said, I always introduce myself with my original language. So I said, hello everyone, Hindi is my name. Now, Galahindi translates to clouds passing over. I am a member of the people of the Standing Stone First Nations and the traditional lands of the Anishinaabe, Haudenosaunee, Delaware, and Huron tribes here in the northern part of Turtle Island, an area we call the Dish with One Spoon Treaty Territory. Now, the Dish with One Spoon Treaty Territory expands from what is now known as the state of New York up to southwestern Ontario, and which is where I am located. And I said, Yanko Yukotono, or thank you, friends, for being here and welcome in. So, for anyone in the U.S., I'm sure you're aware, yesterday was Indigenous Peoples Day. Some people call it Columbus Day still in a couple of states, but I think a majority of them have converted to Indigenous Peoples Day, just because of the history that sits on the backbone of the ideology of Columbus, who didn't really discover America, and in fact had never stepped into the area that we now call the United States. He was never there. He's never, so not only did he not discover a country where there are already people, or a land where there are already people, but he didn't even step on the land that he's attributed to actually discovering. So um, some will say 1492 is the year that indigenous people discovered Columbus lost at sea, because essentially he was lost, and he thought he was where he landed was the land of India, or that's where he was aiming. So today's question essentially was, what do you know what white people, think of indigenous people? Now, the term white is uh, very much an umbrella term, um, implemented to cover all of the people who are um, pale, pale in color. So, but they're not actually white people. I mean, there are people who come from England, from Ireland, from Scotland. People from England are called British people. People from Ireland are called Irish people. People from France are called French people. These are not white people. These are people with their own cultures and their own histories and their own backgrounds. And I really hope that we can find a term to reflect the diversity of cultures that there really are out there, and kind of diminish the use of the word white, um, because that's, it's just not what people are. People are not a color. People are not a race per se. People are a culture, and they represent that if that's the way they want to identify. Much like indigenous people here on Turtle Island, we are not redskins. We are not, part of that fourth color of people that we seem to want to uh, box people into. But today, we want to ask, what do white people think of indigenous people? And so we've got this three-part series, if you will, called First Contact, which we're going to screen, and which poses that question to six Canadians, um, self-identifying Canadians, and put them in the shoes of Indigenous peoples and let them see the actual environments that Indigenous people live in, and try to break their preconceived notions of what indigenous people and their lifestyles are really like. Because really we see a lot of what people think of as far as indigenous people as based on stereotypes. The drunken Indian, the homeless people, the addictions, um, and there's so much more to indigenous peoples than what they see. First of all, I think part of why those stereotypes um, get perpetuated is because when people drive down through cities where there are indigenous populations, the people that they see on the streets may in fact be people with addictions or with drinking problems. And they only see that. And therefore, they pigeonhole all indigenous people into that stereotype. And so, what they don't see are the indigenous peoples who are in school, the indigenous peoples who are um, lawyers and doctors and teachers and elders and working class citizens. They don't see the indigenous people who are uplifting and amplifying each other's voices, so that we can try to bring awareness uh, to what indigenous people's history has been dealt to them. And so this series is going to allow this to really focus in on that question, and see how people um, may or may not change their minds by the end of this I guess it's about a 4 week program that these 6 people have volunteered to be involved in. So, like my growing up, um, a little bit of a mixed bag of worms, so to speak, because both of my biological parents are indigenous. Although I was raised by my grandmother until I was about 11 years old, I moved in with my mother where I had my first drink of hard alcohol and my first smoke of marijuana at the age of 12. There was a lot of physical abuse and chaos in our home, which um, which may feed into the effects of the intergenerational effects of residential schools and what how that has happened. And there'll be many stories you will hear from Indigenous people who have actually been in residential schools for a lengthy period of time, who would tell you that they never heard the words "I love you," um, and that is kind of a sad statement to kind of think of and reflect on because you think about your own growing up, whether or not you've heard the term I love you from one or both of your parents, that would be something that would be the norm, that would be the expectation. But Indigenous people who grew up in residential schools, so you think of a child who was growing up in a loving home with their parents, maybe the parents had some drinking problems, but they were taken away from their parents, taken away from their communities, and shipped off to residential schools, which could be, 400 miles from where they actually live, where their community is. So they have become completely detached from their culture and their background. They are then told that their culture is dirty, their culture is bad, and they are never allowed to celebrate their birthdays. They are never told "I love you," and oftentimes they are physically abused, psychologically abused, and even sexually abused. Um, and some of the stories I've heard from residential school survivors talk about kids who have had to actually put coffins into incinerators of children who died in residential schools. And these children, it's like what people think of the Nazi era. And part of what Hitler did, and now we know, is he based a lot of his methodologies on the way that the U.S. had treated the indigenous peoples here in North Turtle Island. So he's actually taken that from us, that idea of how to in fear of fright, how to get rid of cultures and etc. And did that to the Jewish people, and which is you know this is what the whole Holocaust was. But before the Holocaust, the actions that Hitler performed and did over there and the propaganda he did had already been done here on Turtle Island. And so he just took that strategy and went with it. So you know, it's not it's not a great history to talk about, but in some cases we really kind of have to have these conversations in order for people to understand the mindset of indigenous people, having them to be able to find any kind of empathy for our history and what we've gone through. And so you'll kind of see a little bit of that in this series. And you know, here in both Canada and the US, indigenous people were not even allowed to speak their own language until 1978 when the Indian Act was changed. Now, that being said, the Indian Act still governs how how we interact with the colonial governments. So here in Canada, how we interact with Trudeau, for example. In the U.S., how we interact with Biden. So the Indian Act still um, channels and restricts what we can and cannot do as Indigenous peoples, even on our own land. So that's something that might come up in this. I can't really remember, but That's just a thought, kind of a contributing factor until 1978. Not only could we not speak our language, but we were not also allowed to practice our ceremonies or our traditions in public. So all of that stuff typically happened on the reserves, which were kind of usually isolated and segregated from the main population. And so we're not necessarily checked as much. So elders who lived on reserve would continue to practice ceremony and language, etc., within the privacy of the reservation. And so urban indigenous people like myself would um, would not we didn't have that access, and so it was a way of the colonial government to divide and conquer. And so we now had a lot of indigenous people in the urban areas who have completely lost their culture, and then indigenous people who were able to maintain their cultures were really restricted to the reservations. Yeah, I am finding the Bones of Crows was it was done in two ways. So there was a movie, which I think was, if I remember, 2.5 hours, because we had shared that here, and then there was actually a series which kind of broke that down a little bit more because it had more time to expand and give more detail into the history than the movie did. I think the movie was well done, but it's there was so much missing still just because of the limitation of time. um, but people oftentimes don't want to spend, you know, 6 hours watching a movie. So there is a series, and I believe it's either 5 or 6 episodes, and it's a lot longer, and it delves more into detail. If you're able to ever get to see that, that would be something to check out. So what we'll do is I'm gonna get started with the first episode here, and we'll see how it goes. Either I might take breaks in between each episode, but it'll be depend on how people are feeling, and I'll kind of feel that vibe out in the chat as we go. But let me get this started, and I'll get my mug off the screen so that you can hear this. So let's make sure the volume is up and go here.
What do people really think about Indigenous Canadians?
I think of alcoholism. I think of drug abuse.
A whole bunch of partying and flop houses.
They just always get money and handouts.
How are they the worst off when they're given so much?
We are being made to pay for something that we didn't do.
Where's my money going?
They don't paint their houses. They don't fix windows.
Welfare's not a career.
They're angry at white people.
I mean, they want you to feel sorry for them.
Get off your ass if you're unhappy and go do something about it.
Feels like it's just a lost cause at this point.
Most Canadians have never taken the time to get to know Indigenous people or visit their communities. This group represents those Canadians. All with strong opinions, they've been invited to leave their everyday lives behind and embark on a unique journey deep into Indigenous Canada.
Welcome, all of you, right here to Winnipeg's North End.
Ross, a public servant and family man.
The past is the past. If you're going to worry about the past, the future's not going to do you no favors.
Avonlea, married mother of two.
I didn't create a residential school and force anyone into it.
Dawn, truck driver.
When somebody says that this is their land and it always has been, no, actually, it used to belong to dinosaurs.
Gym owner Ashley.
I changed my life around. Why can't you do it for yourself?
Animal lover Jamie Sue.
It's such a big problem that I feel like I can make a difference at all.
Dallas, lobster fisherman and welder.
If we're going to continue to support Aboriginal people and not see any results, then when is it going to end?
These 6 participants have no idea what's about to happen to them.
This could be not so bad, it could be good, or it could be like, holy, what did I just sign up for?
It will be a journey of surprise that'll turn their lives upside down.
There, you got him. Go, 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 go.
Challenging their perceptions and confronting their opinions.
60 years of residential schools. When did they figure it out? It didn't work.
For 28 days, the six will face their fears in a world they never imagined they'd see.
Throw those gloves on. We need your help.
On a journey that can change their lives forever.
This is camping for them. For me, it's like hell on earth.
We've been on boiled water advisory in 2003.
Really, it gets down to we're saving lives.
I got something.
It really puts a dark stain on the Canada that I thought I knew.
You don't know.
I'm not finished
They
yet.
need money to live.
I'm just having a very hard time understanding.
That's not an excuse. You're a prime example of society.
These six travelers have been invited to experience Indigenous Canada for the next 4 weeks. Other than that, they know nothing about the journey that lies ahead. They've traveled from different parts of the country to meet in Winnipeg's North End, a notoriously dangerous community where 1 in 4 residents are Indigenous. Here they will meet Michael Champagne of Shamattawa Cree First Nation, who will shed some light on what they are about to undertake.
I would like to take this opportunity to welcome all of you here to Winnipeg's North End, Treaty 1 territory, homeland of the Métis Nation, and my home. Winnipeg's North End is a community that is very well known, sometimes for all the wrong reasons. Well, what I'm excited about today is to welcome all of you to my community so that you can see with your own eyes, experience with your own bodies, and feel with your own hearts what this community is really about. You can see a certain representation of the medicine wheel where we're standing, and it talks about the 4 different nations of our world coming together, talks about the 4 elements coming together. When we have opportunities like this to build a relationship, we have a chance to improve our life and perspective as well. That's the reason why you're all here today, so that we can figure out some of the experiences of Indigenous people in Canada and understand a little bit of the historical context of how things got to be this way. So I'm curious to know, what experiences have you folks had with Indigenous people in Canada?
Oftentimes you see them inebriated, or you see them passed out on the street.
I feel like people are kind of wondering why they're given all this money, free housing or education or programs like that. They're not doing anything with it.
Don't come to me bragging about what you can get free from the government when I can't get it.
Do you guys feel like any of the perspectives that you carry about Indigenous people are one-sided or potentially ignorant?
Oh, absolutely I do, for sure. All I know are stories that people from the white community have told me that they've heard.
That's reality. That ain't freaking ignorance. Driving through a reserve. A house burns down, and it stays burned down for years. Nobody goes and tidies it up or cleans it up. To me, first impressions are the key.
Ross is a married father of 3 in Edmonton. He takes great pride in his home.
I got nominated for enhancing our vibrant community for Edmonton.
But his views on First Nations people aren't pretty.
You ever have the nicest looking Indian reserve in Canada? They ever have that contest? Oh my God, they'd be fighting for last place. They don't fix windows. If they have a car, it breaks down, it stays in the yard. Take 5 minutes of your life and get out of bed before noon and tidy up your spot.
Ross's family is well aware of his outspoken opinions.
I'm a little worried because, yeah, he doesn't have a filter. No thinking involved.
And his views are deeply entrenched.
The big residential school score, everyone's playing that card. We were trying to help them. That was what we were trying to indoctrinate them into our society. If we had done nothing, it probably wouldn't have been any different.
The perspectives and experiences that you have shared with me today will be challenged in the next few weeks as you experience what Indigenous people in Canada experience. And I have a lot of hope and faith that minds will be changed.
The 6 participants aren't going far for the first leg of their journey. At over 90,000 strong, Winnipeg has the largest Indigenous population in Canada.
I'm kind of curious to where the next adventure is going to lead us to.
Yeah.
Dallas, Ashley, and Ross don't know where they're going next. It makes Dallas nervous.
This could be not so bad, it could be good, or it could be like, holy, what did I just sign up for?
Dallas is a carefree 26-year-old from New Brunswick
Off to have a great day on the tubes today. Sun's out, guns out.
But his opinions on Indigenous people are less sunny.
Do I think that there's advantages to being, Aboriginal or Native? Yes, I do. Do I think that they don't take full advantage of those advantages? No, I don't.
When it comes to First Nations reserves, Dallas wonders why they even exist.
You don't see any Caucasian reserves, or you don't see any, African Canadian reserves or anything like that. The things you see within newspapers and these areas that they live in, you feel bad for them for a second, and then you wonder why you do.
Over in the other group, Avonlea, Jamie Sue, and Dawn are heading to the suburb of Stonewall. But Avonlea assumes they're going somewhere else.
Indigenous people live on the reserves in BC, so I would be expecting to go onto a reserve.
I have not been to a reservation, I don't think, ever.
If I was to go on to a reserve and stayed at one of those homes, I would want to find a place to go and take a shower first thing in the morning. I probably would be described as someone who is very opinionated and not afraid to speak up about how I feel about things.
Don is a trucker from Ardrossan, Alberta. He makes no bones about his feelings towards Indigenous people.
Let's call it my unity shirt. The letters mean assimilate or leave, fit in or off. A Native person, by definition, is a person who was born here, so I'm a Native Canadian. So it upsets me when somebody says that they have better rights because this is their land.
He believes that stories of abuse at residential schools are exaggerated.
What we're hearing about the residential schools is what their lawyers want you to hear so they can get more money from the government. I can't take away your background, your culture, your language. Why should I, as a taxpaying Canadian, have to pay you for it? So I still don't know where the suffering is.
Oh, wow.
In spite of their assumptions, the travelers find themselves not on a reserve, but in an upper-class suburban neighborhood.
They're pretty nice places.
The group's preconceived notion of what an Indigenous home should look like is challenged.
My house doesn't look like this.
Mine doesn't either.
Well, they all look bigger than my house.
But this is more than just a drive-by. Dawn, Avonlea, and Jamie Sue are about to move in with an Indigenous family for the next 24 hours. This is their first contact.
Come on in.
I'm Dawn.
Dawn, nice to meet you.
This is Mina. Hi, Mina.
Hi.
This beautiful home is a far cry from Dawn's bleak expectations.
What I'm used to for reserve homes, I don't see this as being a reserve home, so I'm okay with this. This is fine.
Host Kevin Lamoureux, his wife Jennifer, and daughter Mina are a hard-working, loving family.
Please dig in.
Contrary to Dawn's beliefs, Jennifer's culture and language was taken from her. She's taking steps now to reclaim it.
I just recently got my Indian status. I'm 38. I guess the effects of assimilation on my family were just that we kind of lost our culture, our connection to our culture, to our language and things like that. So it was kind of like, who am I? And I'm Indigenous. What does that actually mean to me?
What does it mean to you for Mina?
Well, I think that I didn't need my status to reconnect, but it took a little while to understand. Why was I growing up in a non-Indigenous community and not having my culture and my language, and why do I not have that connection, My family went through this for generations of, assimilation and colonization, and it has impacted my family. And so it's kind of just an acknowledgement of you are First Nations, and we recognize that, and I finally have come to just feel connected to my background and feel okay with my story.
The second group of travelers is heading toward the Maples, a neighborhood not typically associated with Indigenous people.
Wherever we do go, I just hope that, there's just like a welcoming vibe.
Ashley is mostly concerned about encountering drunks.
Like my experiences with, Indigenous people, it's wanting to find out, why do you drink so much? If you're miserable, why do you not choose to move? We all pay our taxes as Canadians, and then we see a lot of the community who are struggling with addictions. And it's like, well, where's my money going?
Gym owner Ashley can't understand why Indigenous people can't resolve their issues like she has.
I changed my life around, why can't you do it for yourself? If I kept harping on the fact that I was emotionally and physically abused by my own family member as a kid, to the point where I wanted to run away and do stupid things to myself, but I've come to realize that no one knows me except for myself. They have a lot of issues. It is on them to fix it. Get off your if you're unhappy and go do something about it.
Upon arrival at their Indigenous host's home, the group's fears are alleviated.
I feel a lot more comfortable knowing that like this is a nice area. You know what I mean?
Hello.
Hey.
Hello. Hi.
How are you?
I'm Ross. Derek.
Don't mind having total strangers coming?
Yeah.
Derek Hart and his wife Candace live here with their 2 teenage kids. Achieving this lifestyle wasn't easy. Derek put himself through university, working 3 jobs.
As a couple, we always knew down the road we were going to get a house. We wanted to travel. And one thing for us is that we made sure that we never had any alcohol in the residence, in our house. Yeah. Never.
An Indigenous home without alcohol is hard for Ashley to fathom.
Like, whenever someone says alcohol and Indigenous, you ask an average Canadian, the first few things that pop in their head are like alcoholism and drug abuse and abuse. So before you guys kind of got together, did you guys have any issues with your own alcohol or drug abuse?
My mother is a single mother. She never allowed alcohol in the house. I think maybe that's where I got it from. From a young age, I was introduced to, you know, our culture and everything else. And so I was just used to not having any alcohol in our residence.
Are there a lot of your friends that don't have alcohol in the home?
We know a lot of people. Yeah, there's a lot of ceremonial people that
traditional people.
Traditional, they don't.
Yeah.
But Ross doesn't believe they represent the majority.
They're out in the public, right? You probably wouldn't have to go too many blocks before you'd see some, you know, homeless guy or some, right?
But I think that's the thing too, is that we just wanted our family, our children, being used to that, where there's no alcohol in the home.
It doesn't matter what family you belong to. You have Christmas. Some guy's coming over half in the bag. Doesn't matter if it's, you know, no.
No.
We keep the alcohol and the drugs away from it.
Do you want to do a dance before you get ready for bed?
Over in Stonewall, Dawn, Avonlea, and Jamie Sue are about to see the positive effects of Indigenous culture on 4-year-old Mina.
Can you get some water?
Mina knows that the drum needs water.
It makes the skin go not dry anymore. This style is the butterfly dance.
Oh.
Thanks, sweetie.
We made this together as a family at one of the school events.
It was demonstrated how to do it, and it was a lot of work.
As a family, we stretched the hide, and we made the drumstick.
That was very cool.
Yeah, just to even have the opportunity now in my adulthood and to be a part of that with Mina is just so, it's amazing.
Good night, Mina.
Good night, Mina.
It's bedtime for Mina, giving the guests a chance to learn that Kevin's life wasn't always like this.
Poverty was common when I was growing up. And then everything that comes with poverty, looking for work, looking for reasonable housing, escaping bad situations. I got sober when I was 18 years old. You know, looking back, I was probably drinking alcoholically when I was 12. I was in a desperate situation by the time I was 13, in and out of juvenile detention, drug treatment centers, in trouble with the law, spiraling suicide attempts. Then I started to look to understand some of the causes and conditions. Residential schools have left all kinds of wreckage in our society. Right? And I mean, the effects of this ripple out into our communities. How much is tied to lack of education, healthcare, and trouble with the law, you know, finances, economic vibrancy, all of these things go back to this wound, right? I have these moments where I'll go into Mina's room and I'll rub her back and I'll sing to her and try to put her back to sleep. But I have to think about the fact that there was a time as recently as 1996 that the government might not have wanted me to raise my own daughter, right? And what would her life have been like if instead of her having daddy come in and sing to her or tell her a story, somebody hit her or yelled at her or put soap in her mouth for speaking the language that I told her to speak, right? What would happen to her life? And then what would happen if instead of my daughter having a chance to heal from that experience, they took her kids away? And then their kids, and then their kids. and then their kids all the way to 7 generations.
See, as a kid growing up, I wished somebody would take me away. Because I didn't have to go to school to get beaten. I got beaten at home.
You know, and this is the beauty of something like this, so that we can hear each other's stories and have that empathy for each other, right? Because we haven't had that opportunity. I need you to understand that residential schools are not your fault.
No.
It's not on you. And this is the reason I wanted to invite you into my home, is because I've seen far too many Canadians walk away from learning about residential schools with a sense of guilt that isn't owed to them. You didn't do this.
I don't know any of this. How is that possible?
Yeah, I can't believe something like that would be all over the news. It's disappointing.
Yeah. The other side of that, though, is that as much as this isn't any of our faults, we do have to make a decision. Even though I'm not responsible for this, do I want to contribute to the solution? And that's for every person to decide.
The first day of the journey is done, and there is much for the exhausted travelers to absorb. But their opinions on the experience so far differ.
The thought pattern I had showing up to the unknown was a negative connotation right away, and thinking, am I gonna be sleeping in a slum? And then we show up to this nice house with these awesome people. It caught me off guard thinking, wow, I had a negative thought right off the get-go when I shouldn't have.
And this is a man and his wife who are working and paying their own way, and they've got a beautiful place. People that live in the houses that we saw in the north side is probably the greatest percentage. And some of them are working, some of them may be on welfare, who knows? I don't know. I know for sure that on the reserves, there's lots of people that aren't doing anything except collecting their monthly paycheck.
Winnipeg, day 2. The travelers pack up and say goodbye to their Indigenous hosts. Today, Jamie Sue, Ross, and Dawn will experience a very different side of the city. Many of Canada's missing and murdered Indigenous women are from Winnipeg. And sadly, some of their remains have been found here in the Red River. As a woman with her own difficult past, Jamie Sue can empathize with this awful reality more than most.
Alcoholism runs in my family, really strong on my mom's side. My mom has had her struggles with it that was passed on to me as well. Yeah, it's definitely generational. I am an animal lover. I have 3 cats, Missy, Baxter, Parker, and a dog named Chico.
Jamie Sue lives in Ingersoll, Ontario. Growing up near a reserve, she was taught to fear her Indigenous neighbors.
We were told not to really look at them, and we were told not to go on the reserve ever. Like, it's not safe.
Today, she still knows little about Canada's First Nations people.
The stories that some of these people have gone through in their childhood and stuff, it just seems like it's a whole bunch of partying and flop houses, unfortunately. But like any community, there's always going to be those uplifting spirits in it, and I'm sure we'll actually get to meet like that little light in the darkness, and then that'll make it into a happy one, because there's always hope.
Unlike Jamie Sue, Ross and Dawn have little sympathy for the victims or their families.
We're hearing about missing and murdered Indigenous women, but we're not hearing about white girls, black girls, Asian girls, whatever. And for all we know, there could be just as many of them that are missing. It still comes down to a choice. Being broke and poor and getting addicted to drugs is a choice.
They're about to have their views turned upside down. The group has been sent to experience Drag the Red, an Indigenous grassroots initiative that scours the river looking for evidence of missing and murdered people. Started by Bernadette Smith after her own sister went missing nearly 10 years ago, Drag the Red is about more than dredging up evidence. It's about healing.
It's helping people get involved, it's helping community come together, and it's helping to create change. People are getting involved because they don't want to see this violence anymore.
What kind of percentages are we looking at that are Indigenous and non-Indigenous persons?
You know, 2 years ago, it was recorded that there were, 1,181 missing and murdered, Indigenous women.
Yes.
If we were to take that and equate that to Caucasian women, that would equate to about 18,000 missing women.
Jamie Sue is floored. These aren't just numbers. They're human beings.
It's so sad. It just blows my mind the way that the stereotypes desensitize us so much that it removes the fact that that's an actual person.
I mean, media were portraying my sister as this, Aboriginal sex trade, drug addicted woman. So it really dehumanizes and gives the public almost permission to put blame on these women, when in fact every person has a story. Like, my sister didn't grow up thinking, oh, I want to work the streets and be addicted to drugs. She was sexually abused as a little girl. She was 12 years old, and she was raped. And that really turned her life around. A lot of our stories are similar. We never in a million years thought it would happen to us. We need to, as a society, shift the way we think, we act, and we treat each other.
So we're just getting our kids together here?
Not far away, Ashley, Dallas, and Avonlea are about to get a taste of life on the streets in the North End.
You three will come with me.
Every night, James Favel leads a group of volunteers called the Bear Clan.
Okay, let's do this.
Working closely with hospitals and law enforcement, they patrol this largely Indigenous neighborhood to keep residents safe.
So we're just keeping our eyes on the ground.
There are plenty of dangers.
There's a needle over here, James.
Needle. Sharps. I guess you've got the sharps container there.
Just 5 minutes into their walk, Ashley discovers an exposed, used hypodermic needle.
It is very scary. These people are just getting high and they're throwing their needles and, with no regard to kids, anybody else.
Growing up on these very streets, James did time in prison before straightening out his life and starting the program.
When I was younger, the reason why I got into trouble is because I wanted money to buy the things that I couldn't afford. The women, they find themselves in a position where they're trying to tend for kids that they don't have enough money to support. Man goes to prison, they got to do what they got to do to survive. Next thing you know, they're turning tricks or whatever else.
Yeah. So you kind of feel like it's a cycle almost.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and it all stems just from
poverty. Hello there.
Hi.
What's going on with you? You're okay?
Good.
But it's the high number of unsupervised kids on the streets that shocks Ashley and Avonlea.
It's, 7:30 in the evening, and there's no parents around. And
is it a good thing that they're out being independent, or is it a bad thing that they're alone and, it appears like neglect? It's alarming to me being a mom.
Avonlea is a married stay-at-home mom in Chilliwack, BC.
I have 2 boys. They're 1 and 2. Okay, legs straight. I would definitely classify us in the middle class, and my mom helps us out quite a bit. With having one income, we really have to work at it. We have a house, we're paying the mortgage off.
When she compares her situation to that of an Indigenous family's,
Here, you help Rory. Come here.
she feels put out.
I'm not sure how it works on the reservations, but I think they're given a house. They didn't earn the dollar to pay for that house. Whereas in my house, I have to work hard for everything we have, and my husband works hard for the money. It's a nice idea to think that you just get some money from the government and don't have to worry about things.
back there, we're watching all the kids. Some don't have shoes on, and they're walking around in the grass, the same grass we're looking
Needles.
for, paraphernalia. Where are the parents? And where...
Well, she was right there on the corner, one of them. And the dad was the other one with that little blonde girl.
Mom's right there.
Why aren't they doing better?
Isn't she saying anything?
Can't answer that. Part of the sickness that comes with the living like this. The thing that the Indigenous community has lost is that connectivity between the family members. The culture was taken away, language was taken away, land was taken away, and like the family unit was destroyed. There's a mental sickness that comes along with that.
Ashley's not convinced. She can't understand why Indigenous people can't overcome their issues like she has.
Instead of making excuses like, I'm not getting enough money to live, like, why don't you get up, man up, and go find a job?
Yeah, well, when you have a criminal record, it's not that easy. So there's barriers to education, there's barriers to employment.
You come from someone who had a
That's
criminal
right,
record.
but I worked
and look
very
where
hard
you
to
are.
get here.
Exactly. So
It's not
why aren't-
impossible.
Exactly.
But it's not easy.
And you're a perfect example of where you can go.
But I'm not typical. Remember, as an Indigenous person, these kinds of things are pervasive through our community. Barriers to education, barriers to employment. And a lot of people don't have the skills, the tools to overcome those barriers. So that's why we're here.
But I
is to try
learned,
to
I
help
took
them.
courses. That's my thing,
That's
is
right,
like,
but
I'm
that's
just having
you.
a very hard time understanding. That's my
Yeah.
thing.
It's not universal. People suffer in different ways.
Out on the Red River, the other group is looking for evidence of missing and murdered women with Drag the Red.
Going down the river looks beautiful, but underneath there's a whole bunch of tragedy and bad memories and graves for people who came to an end that they didn't deserve. So it's almost surreal.
They stop near an old railway bridge gathering debris from downriver. It takes little time to snag something.
Oh.
What's at the bottom of that chain is what would be interesting.
The prospect of finding something weighs heavily on Jamie Sue.
The very first time that we pulled it up, there's like a moment of high anxiety and what ifs that really popped into my mind.
Holy crap! Somebody can put a body in there and throw that in there, right? To keep it down.
Now it's Jamie Sue's turn to drag the bottom.
Part of me really wanted to find something to help someone, but at the same time, a whole bunch of fear. Like, what if this is something that's going to haunt my dreams, or it's just intense? Oh, I got something.
Got something? Here,
Yeah.
grab it. Ready? Then I'll check on the
I think
hook,
it let
see
go.
what it is.
Yeah, I let go.
It's been a long night, and some of the travelers have been profoundly affected by what they've experienced.
Before, it was something I would see on the news, and not often enough, in my opinion, because I didn't really understand the magnitude of the situation. So it's definitely part of my life now and very real to me.
You get to hear these stories, man, and you get to really see what's going on instead of just driving by it.
But not everyone is convinced.
My opinion hasn't really changed. I think that the weaker the family group is, the further in the hole it goes, basically. I would personally say, yeah, it's a waste of time.
Family, when it's a generational mess, how can they support someone when they're dealing with their own trauma, their own addiction? You know, you don't have that solid foundation to grow from. I hurt for these people, but at the same time, I'm happy that they're able to come together out of their pain and try to help other people with their grief.
There's got to be a line where the excuses stop and the actions start.
The second leg of the journey has begun. The group will have their views confronted in one of the most isolated places in Canada. The travelers don't know it, but they've been invited to Kimmirut, a remote Inuit community on the western shore of Baffin Island.
Well, it's got wings and an engine. We're good.
The cold northern air is a shock to the system.
It's freezing. They said it was 6, but I called. I think there's a negative beside that.
With no roads on this unforgiving Arctic terrain, air travel is the group's only way in or out of Kimmirut.
You definitely feel like you're definitely a little more remote on this side of the country for sure.
Yeah, there's no trees, not a tree to be had.
Jeez, there's a tree line where they cease to grow.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
What we signed up for. It's gonna be an adventure.
The view of the northern landscape is both breathtaking and humbling for Dallas and the group.
I've never felt so foreign in my own country.
The travelers are welcomed to the community by local Sac Camella.
I think you'll like it here. Yeah, but it's kind of chilly.
Kimmirut has less than 400 residents, 90% of them Inuit. Many of them still rely on hunting as a way of life. Dawn, Avonlea, and Ashley are welcomed into the home of Jeannie and Elijah Padlock.
Yeah, welcome. Yeah.
Like most elders here, Jeannie and Elijah speak only Inuktitut. Sac translates for the group.
Thanks for coming to my community.
Out of respect for her guests, Jeannie's prepared a store-bought meal. But it's far from what she'd typically serve her family.
So what would be an example of local food?
Seal. Whale.
No.
Ashley's chance to try local food will come sooner than she thinks.
Really? How are you?
Across town, Dallas, Ross, and Jamie Sue shop at the local store for dinner.
$11 for a bottle of ketchup. Holy God. Somebody's making a killing somewhere.
Full supply and demand at its finest right there. Supply.
After paying the bill, Ross is left with a serious case of sticker shock.
I think I already took $5 for this, $5. Pretty disgusting, the prices these poor people are paying.
Back at Jeannie's house,
Yum, 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 yum.
Looks nice and red.
a local delicacy has been delivered. Freshly killed caribou prepared the traditional way, raw.
Would you like to try some?
Well, raw? No.
Yeah, why not?
Yes, you do.
No, I don't even eat
I'm
pig.
full. I am so full.
Oh, just have a bite. That's what I say. I like to have some.
For them, it was a real treat, and trying it wasn't my thing. I think it was a mental thing because you could see so much blood.
So, do you eat the stomach?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it tastes like grass.
Ashley finally gives in.
Does it taste like steak?
It's good. Delicious.
You know what? It actually tastes good. It actually tastes really good.
It's all part of the sharing economy Inuit people have lived by for centuries.
We share seal, fish. We don't exchange and bargain. We distribute and share, and everyone gets a bite.
It's day 2 in Kimmirut. Dallas, Ross, and Jamie Sue are about to have the adventure of a lifetime.
Hello. Anya.
Anya, a local hunter, his daughter, and the Padlock family are taking them out on the frigid Arctic waters for a seal hunt. It's an experience few Canadians will ever have.
Oh my God, there's an iceberg over here. That's insane. That's my first iceberg ever.
But for animal lover Jamie Sue, the thought of hunting a seal is gut-wrenching.
I personally am not comfortable with killing an animal. I don't know how I will handle it.
Dallas, on the other hand, is ready for the kill.
Let's see how they live. Let's see how they provide. I'm fully on board. I want to get a seal. I want to get 2 seals.
But stalking a suitable seal in open water isn't easy, particularly at this time of year.
When you shoot them, they float to the top?
Not much fat right now. Summertime, they think. When we shoot them, we gotta be quick.
What would you do with the seal? Just put it in the boat?
Yeah.
The foggy conditions make it nearly impossible for the Inuit hunters to spot a seal. But the travelers are about to learn how determined they are to succeed. Back in Kimmirut,
Whoa! You schooled me!
Dawn, Ashley, and Avonlea have seen all sides of the community, including a session with a local carver.
What do you use for the eyes?
I just...
Yeah.
But a chance meeting at lunch starts a conversation that will alter their perspective on Inuit life.
You know that old saying, eh? Walk a mile in my shoes and you'll understand.
They talk with Nunavut MP Hunter Tutu, here for a town hall meeting.
I think the biggest challenge for Aboriginal people is just the ignorance.
Yeah.
Recently, he's gone public about issues with alcoholism, stemming from his time at residential school. Prior to this journey, Ashley wasn't aware that residential schools even existed.
I can't say I know anything about the residential schools with Aboriginals. Never knew that it was a problem.
It was probably the darkest period in my life.
Okay.
You have no family, you feel like you're all alone. I mean, if you look at the whole concept behind it was to assimilate Indigenous young people. Hector Lajame, he was one of the architects, and he said, you know, the only way to take the Indian out of somebody is to take them away from home. You can't leave them in their homes. Basically, it was cultural genocide. I mean, if you know my story, I went through a heck of a year last year. I went through treatment. I faced a lot of stuff.
Right.
You know, I thought all this stuff happened to me. How could it bother me? It didn't bother me. Look at me. I'm successful.
Yeah.
But, you know, until I sat down and faced it, I realized how much of an impact those things that happened to me in my life had on me, and that I needed to deal with them.
The government is trying to put money towards Indigenous people and the counselors and therapists. People don't want to go. They don't want that help.
The programs and resources in southern Canada have been there for years. In all of the land that Inuit reside in Canada, not one single treatment center.
Wow.
Not one. You know, it takes a lot of courage for someone to go and say, I need help, I need to talk to someone. Up here, it's like you may have like a psychologist would come in, and then so they open up and they go and they talk to someone and they lay their soul out to them. Then that person's gone, someone else comes in, they gotta start all over again.
Yeah.
Going through that is hard enough once. Having to do it multiple times is just too much.
Sucks.
They need programs to help people heal from that.
On the icy shores of Baffin Island, Dallas, Jamie Sue, and Ross are hunting seals. But so far, they've got nothing. So their Inuit hosts take them on shore to try their luck at Arctic char.
Is it slippery?
Upstream is a traditional fish trap that makes catching easy. But getting there is anything but. The hike gives the group a new respect for the Inuit people who've survived here for generations.
I don't know how they could have done it, because you don't see no trees where you could like have fire, or like any wood where you can make shelter. Like, I don't think I could last 2 days up here by myself, man. You know what I mean?
Dallas and the others can barely keep up with their 78-year-old guide. But upon arrival, the fish trap is overrun with water, and there are no char to harvest.
I guess the normal weather, when it's not so much rain, that fish get trapped in there and we're able to just grab them out.
With no seal and now no fish, the weary travelers get a taste of how hard life on this rugged land can be. Wild blueberries are a welcome find.
This is a tough place to live and survive.
I couldn't do it. I couldn't live out here. You gotta look at these people, and they're the true Canadians when I really think about it.
These people are the hardy ones, I'll tell you.
Yeah, they're the cornerstone if you ask me.
Back in Kimmirut, the revelation about residential schools has driven a wedge between Avonlea and Ashley and Dawn.
I'm still skeptical about the whole school thing, because it was all, they stole our kids. They ruined our families. They took us all away.
That was to focus on.
That,
it's not
that
focusing
connotation
on
of that is it was a violent taking of all the children away from the families.
It's not focusing on. They took their culture. They took their
No,
language
you can't
away
take
from
someone's culture. You
Yes,
can
you
teach
can.
them a new culture, and if they don't,
But if they're
But then that's
forcing
negating
them,
their own
they're
culture.
forcing them not to speak that language. That's taking it away. That's taking their human right away. I think regardless of how it was done and the intention that was there, what happened to them
Inside the schools is disgusting.
Inside the schools is disgusting.
you're saying that what they actually went through, and I'm saying maybe they did, but I haven't seen actual proof of it yet.
I haven't seen proof of your life.
No, you haven't seen proof of my life.
So, I mean, I'm not denying that
but
happened.
I can give you firsthand knowledge of what happened
I'm getting
to me.
firsthand knowledge. That's why I'm here.
In spite of what he's heard, Dawn still clings to the belief that residential schools may have been a good thing for Indigenous people.
You know, if I heard that all these kids that were in residential schools were taken, kicking and screaming out of their homes, and their parents were kind of pushed aside to do that, that's bad. That's really bad, and I agree that it's bad. In the meantime, I'm still skeptical.
Coming into a community, you want to make sure that you listen instead of talk over them, because I don't think you can come in just guns blazing and say you know everything. That's the epitome of ignorance.
Back on the Arctic coast, it's been a fruitless day of hunting. Not a single seal. Frozen and exhausted, Dallas is miserable.
This isn't fun. This isn't good. We'd go missing, no one know. No one know. Not here. No chance. Just want this day to be over with, to be honest with you. I just want it to kind of fast forward and just be in Kimmirut or somewhere's not here.
It's day 2 of the seal hunt, and Dallas has hit the wall.
I haven't had a shower this morning. I haven't been able to brush my teeth. This is camping for them, you know? This is kind of like their getaway. For me, it's almost like hell on earth.
But for Ross, the hunt has helped him develop a new appreciation for the Inuit people.
I was chasing some 78-year-old lady yesterday. Can you keep up with her? You got to give the generations and generations prior to these people big, huge prompts, because I don't know how they did it. They got skills that we don't have.
After breakfast, Ross and Jamie Sue sit down with Jeannie's son, Nepa. They're about to discover they have more in common than they thought.
Most of the stuff you hear is just like, nothing but drunks or druggies or whatever. That's really not true, because the whole community is so close. Everybody helps out everybody. You're respecting your elders, respecting what other people have taught you. Keep that in your brain, in your soul, in your heart. It's just our way of life, and we just try and maintain it as best we can.
Yeah, it's all about kindness and really striving to help other people instead of putting yourself first, right? But we've lost a lot of that back home.
Kimillit people are we're proud to be Inuit. We always tell them, try and learn the Inuit way of life all the time. Make that number one.
The team leaves for Kimmirut. The conditions are perfect to spot a seal. Their patience pays off. Nepa catches sight of a ring seal resting on an iceberg. But it senses danger and vanishes into the depths.
Straight down. See a day like this, flat water, you lose them. That's how good they are.
It's not long before they track another in a small cove. They just need a clean shot.
Go, 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 go!
They rush over, but it's too late. The seal has sunk out of reach,
It's sinking hard.
leaving nothing behind but a trail of blood.
He's going down fast.
Oh man, that was so close.
The hunt ends with a kill, but no payoff of food. For animal lover Jamie Sue, it's hard to take.
Well, it's a waste of a life. Nobody wins there. Animal killed, and no one's benefiting from it.
But for the Inuit families who rely on seal as a main source of food, it's an accepted reality.
It's like a 50-50. Either it's gonna drop like a rock like that one did, or they're gonna float. You can't distinguish which one's gonna float or which one's gonna sink, so you only know after you shoot it. You're gonna feed the ocean. You're feasting now, so they're all happy. Somebody's happy. Somebody's always happy.
After a long ride home, the two groups come together. Their experiences in Kimmirut have left a lasting impression.
I'm more open to the experience, and maybe coming in I was more judgmental, and now I'm feeling a little less like that.
To be completely honest, I thought they'd be more wild. Like, really, and just, running around killing stuff. But it's completely not like that. So it's just helping form my opinion that we're all people on the inside, and we have a lot more similarities than I thought that we would, for sure.
These people are a special breed of people, man. They're very happy with their friends and family, and you can just tell there's so much joy in the kids. You cannot say these people don't have the work ethic and drive to go out and get it, man. These people, man, that's crazy. That's crazy. Look at that.
Their time in Nunavut is over, but the six have no idea about the trials that lie ahead.
The final destination is Muskrat Dam, Ontario.
I'm the minority here. It's definitely one of those feelings. It's like, it's kind of scary.
The seed that was planted in this reserve was residential school.
We can't keep worrying about what happened. Come on, man. Let's not be oblivious to this fact.
You're not getting it.
I am getting it.
Why are you here?
I'm the average white guy, honest.
Sigoli Swagway, Galahidi, Neo Getz, Wagi Sliwagi Niwaki Dalota, and welcome in to the new people Miser family. Thank you so much for popping in and hanging out. So that was the first of 3 episodes. I thought I would maybe play a quick song here to allow people to grab a drink or grab a snack, something to kind of refresh and get ready before the next episode starts. So that's what I'm going to try to do here. If I can get this here to display properly for me. There's got to be a way. Ah, there we go. So I am going to play song. Speaking of Indigenous peoples and what non-Indigenous people perceive, there's a segment of the Indigenous people that we call urban Indigenous, and they grew up in the cities, much like I did. And part of what's happened with us urban Indigenous people is that we were kind of stuck between two cultures. So The idea that Indigenous people went from the reserves to the city was essentially because they were promised um, education and job opportunities and a better life and a better future for their families and their children. And uh, so many Indigenous people left the reserves in that with that belief system. The problem I found was that, or the history has shown us, is that first of all was not true. It was that those opportunities were not there. In fact, most of those opportunities were never there to begin with. So it was an it was a way of luring people away from the cluster of their culture, the communities in which they actually lived and thrived in, or attempted to thrive in, within the restrictions of this colonial system. And so the idea is to pull them into the Eurocentric society or systems in order for them to give up their indigeneity and their link to their communities, and essentially have them assimilate, which was ultimately the goal from the time of Sir John A. Macdonald, who's called the indigenous people savages basically, and said, this is the only way to deal with it. So I was growing up in the city, primarily, except for my very, very young years. I can remember being in, using an outhouse. I remember heating our homes with wood burning stoves. So we had we made do with what we had before moving into the city again for the opportunities and promises of a better life by the colonial system. And as a result, we lost our language. My grandmother actually spoke fluent Onondaga, but she would not teach us children in a way of protecting us, because it was not allowed legally for us to do so. Um, they wanted to protect us from getting into trouble by not teaching it to us, because if they don't teach it to us, we have no way of using it, in which case we have no way of getting ourselves into trouble. And it's just that was the whole way that the assimilation process worked. And unfortunately, so now I didn't start learning my language until, I was in my 50s. It, you know, it's a whole lot more difficult for someone at my, yeah, in the 50s to start learning a new language than it is as children, because children are sponges. We absorb everything. But as a 50 plus year old person, I was at that point unable to speak or learn it, and it was a difficult time for me to learn what I do know. And but I'm still learning, even over a decade later, that I'm processing some language. And so, if at all possible, it's nice to have people around you who are also into learning the language. In that way, it makes it easier to not only start to maintain it, but to remember it in a fluent way, so that we can all continue to maintain that language and then teach others at the same time. So, just an intro, I guess, to the song I'm going to play. The song is called Strong. It was the song that I used as the opening song of my Dark Native stream, and so Strong is the idea of the commentator or narrator of the story to explaining the difficulty between the two cultures. Of course, that being me, but um, so living in a white society where we're not really fully accepted because we're not white, um, and the opportunities that were there were very limited. Even in the education system, we were taught menial skills that would prepare us for manual laborers as our careers, rather than jobs for becoming a lawyer, becoming a teacher, etc. So one of the other things is that post-secondary school, um, which was there, we were not able to attend unless we agreed to relinquish uh, our citizenship to our indigenous community. So in other words, we gave up our status and would no longer be considered indigenous. And that was just for a great number of people just wrong. And I think that a majority of people declined that. However, there were obviously some that took that opportunity. Nowadays, that restrictions has been lifted, so you're not losing your membership to a community anymore. But I think that probably changed in 1978 when our language was able to be was permitted to be used again. So, so we're stuck with this culture where we're not accepted. Then we also have our indigenous ancestors and communities who no longer accepted us because we moved into a white man's world. We made the choice to leave our communities to chase a rainbow, so to speak. And and so when we lost our language and we lost our culture and our teachings and our traditions, the people on the reserve often felt that we had abandoned them, and in a way. And so we were no longer accepted by the white society, and we weren't accepted by our indigenous society, who called us apples because we were red on the outside and white on the inside. Um, it's taken a long time for that to change. We are now seeing a shift in that, where our communities are starting to accept and welcome the urban indigenous peoples back into the community as members that are truly part of their culture, and they're teaching them. And that's what we're really relishing in, is this reclamation of culture and history, language and teachings. So that is a positive in all of this. So we'd like to see that continue. And I love seeing when we have young indigenous artists who are actually singing songs now in their traditional language. And even new pop songs, for example, they're translating these songs into indigenous languages and singing them. So that's a blessing to see happen. So this song "Strong" is essentially about that. So let me get this played so that you guys in the interim can grab a snack or grab a drink, whatever you like here while this is playing, and then we'll get into episode 2.
You don't know how sweet I am. You don't know how sweet I am. I am what I am, and I am sweet. You don't know how sweet I am.
Yo, check this. I might not be what you want me to be, so you might not see what you want to see. But if you got a minute, listen to what I gotta say, cause it's a brand new year and it's a brand new day. See, there's a gap between my culture and the life that I lead, so some will call me an apple, and some a bad seed. They have no idea how my heart will bleed. Their words and attitudes are things I just don't need.
You don't know how sweet I am. I am what I am, and I am sweet.
You see, I'm proud of who I am, and I'm proud of where I'm from. Those ones spreading racism, they're just fucking dumb. Now if you're looking at my life, and you say I've assimilated, to simplify things, just a little more complicated. See, I'm a modern day native, with a modern day life. I have modern day problems, and modern day strife. Now I hear other natives, they talk about the past. And will I do the same? Fuck that. See, I've got no time to dwell on what's already done. I've got too many things that I want to do. And they don't include knives, and they don't include guns. I'm talking about knowledge and sharing it too. See, my people need to learn how to cohabitate. Get rid of the anger and get rid of the hate. We gotta stop for a minute and learn to educate. And you'll see in the end, we all have to communicate. I know there'll be a time to make a stand and a time to fight, but if you do that, make sure the cause is right. Because if the cause is right and the cause is just, greater numbers of people will be backing you up. History has repeatedly shown to us all that united we stand and divided we fall. They were talking about natives and natives alone, because this is a big world and this world is our home. Now I've seen some beautiful people and ugly ones too, and there's no single color that comes into view. So the message I'm sending, it's not all that long. It's just, I want the human race to be stronger than strong. I said I just want the human race to be stronger than strong.
We all have to be strong.
Done it. Word.
We all have to be strong. Peace.
Okay. Well, I hope you all got your snacks and drinks and are ready for episode 2. Um, that actually was done, and that song was recorded in like 2004, I'd like to think, if I can remember. And so the voice that you're hearing of the child is Fab Feline, which is our son. And he was probably about 3.5, maybe 4 years old at the time. Um, yeah, no, I guess he's maybe 4 going on 5 at the time. About 4.5 years old at the time. And that started, his sample that I used started with a bus ride home from his daycare, in which we were sitting on the bus and I asked him, well, how was your day? And he said, it was okay. There was a boy that pushed me though. And he says, oh, so why did he push you? And Fab said, because he don't know how sweet I am. And I thought that was such an awesome and innocent way of looking at things because as a child, um, when we talk about children and their perspectives, they're very innocent and raw, and we just don't acknowledge that sometimes. That we can learn from children so much because they have an innocent perspective, which is not is is unfiltered, first of all, but it's also not influenced at that point of, say, the hatred and anger and hostility and animosity that adults have, or even in some cases some of the racism that some people have that that fuels the next generations. So when we do things today, we always got to think by our elders of the next 7 generations. So the way that we speak or what we do in front of our children, is it something that we want our children to repeat and continue on for their children? And that's where we consider the intergenerational effects of residential schools on us, is that we have this idea of low self-esteem, and it takes a lot of effort for us to build ourselves up to a point where we feel comfortable enough to share our histories and our family dilemmas, if you will. So as we do that, we are healing at the same time that we are teaching our children it's okay to have a weakness, and we understand all humans have certain weaknesses. It's okay um, to be angry at times, because we do get angry. We all get angry. It's just how we deal with it and how that manifests in the way that we grow up as adults. So if we can be good role models to our children and in a good way, then our children ultimately are going to live in a good way as well. and because children are not inherently racist or hateful when they're born. They're innocent and look at things in a very innocent way. And so those types of anger and hatred and racism, those are taught behaviors. Those are ways that children become victims of their environment. And so, in order to improve the way that children see the world, we got to improve their environment. And we got to allow them to be able to see the good and what we can do as humans. So let me see if I can get this back up here. And we'll get back to this episode 2.
What do people really think about Indigenous Canadians?
I think of alcoholism. I think of drug abuse.
A whole bunch of partying and flop houses.
They just always get money and handouts.
How are they the worst off when they're given so much?
We are being made to pay for something that we didn't do.
Where's my money going?
They don't paint their houses. They don't fix windows.
Welfare's not a career.
They're angry at white people.
I mean, they want you to feel sorry for them.
Get off your ass if you're unhappy and go do something about it.
Feels like it's just a lost cause at this point.
Most Canadians have never taken the time to get to know Indigenous people or visit their communities. This group represents those Canadians. All with strong opinions, they've been invited to leave their everyday lives behind and embark on a unique journey deep into Indigenous Canada.
Welcome, all of you, right here to Winnipeg's North End.
Ross, a public servant and family man.
The past is the past. If you're going to worry about the past, the future's not going to do you no favors.
Avonlea, married mother of 2.
I didn't create a residential school and force anyone into it.
Dawn, truck driver.
When somebody says that this is their land and it always has been, no, actually, it used to belong to dinosaurs.
Gym owner Ashley.
I changed my life around. Why can't you do it for yourself?
Animal lover Jamie Sue.
It's such a big problem that I feel like I couldn't make a difference at all.
Dallas, lobster fisherman and welder.
If we're going to continue to support Aboriginal people and not see any results, then when is it going to end?
On the first leg of their journey, the participants had their perceptions confronted in Winnipeg.
I'm just having a very hard time understanding.
It's not universal. People suffer in different ways.
Then, they were pushed to the limit in one of the most isolated places in Canada.
This is camping for them. For me, it's like hell on earth.
Where killing a seal had a dramatic effect.
Well, it's a waste of a life. Nobody wins there.
And now, the journey's about to get even more intense.
We're stick out like orange jumpsuits, man.
The group experiences their first isolated reserve in Northern Ontario.
We've been on boil water advisory 2003.
Then, they have their opinions challenged in the heart of Alberta.
60 years of residential schools. When did they figure it out it didn't work?
And members of the group start to turn on each other.
You don't know.
It doesn't matter, man. They need money to live.
You're not getting it.
Why are you here?
I'm the average white guy, honestly.
The 6 travelers have completed their stay in Kimmerut, and they have no idea where they're going next.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome on board Premier Charter Flight heading to Rankin Inlet, Nunavut. We will just be stopping there for fuel. The final destination is Muskrat Dam, Ontario. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the flight.
Where?
So 3 hours.
I have no idea.
I never heard.
It doesn't sound that appealing.
Muskrat Dam is one of several fly-in reserves in Northern Ontario. These communities are often associated with addictions, tragedy, and violence, as reported in the news. But in reality, most Canadians know little to nothing about life here.
Welcome to Muskrat Dam.
Yeah, nice, thanks.
Hey, nice to meet you.
Welcome to Muskrat Dam.
Thank you.
Today, the 6 travelers are about to get fully immersed in life in a remote Indigenous reserve.
So we've been in this area for a long time, at least 7,600 years. That's what we can prove that we've been on these lands.
Led by Chief Stan Beardy, Muskrat Dam is an independent community of just 300 residents from both Cree and Ojibwe nations.
We still live to a large extent our traditional lifestyle. We hunt, fish, and trap. We speak our own language here, Oji Cree. It's the combination of Cree and Ojibwe. Further north, they speak the Cree language, and below us, they speak Ojibwe. So we're in the middle there, so we call ourselves Oji Cree, combination, a little bit of both. We don't have any development here. It's a fly-in community, so we don't have any transmission line, and we have our own water plant, so we run everything ourselves here.
But maintaining a healthy, progressive community up here isn't easy, and the Six are about to understand just how difficult it is.
So we thought when you went up north you were more isolated. You actually might be more isolated here.
For Jamie Sue, being on a reserve is a first. Growing up, she was taught to fear Indigenous people.
We were told not to go on the reserve ever. Like, it's not safe. It just seems like it's a whole bunch of partying and flop houses, unfortunately.
Now that she's here, it's nothing like she imagined.
It reminds me of cottage country, really. Like, kind of has that look and feeling to it.
With no hotel or available housing, the Six are forced to sleep in tents in the center of the reserve.
There you go.
For Dallas, the idea is nerve-wracking.
You don't hear gunshots at night or anything like that, but there feels like there's a sense of insecurity because, for one, I'm the minority here. For two, the police, there's only about 2 of them. It's definitely one of those feelings of just like, it's kind of scary.
After an uneventful night, Ashley, Avonlea, and Dawn are up early to help some local fishers with their daily catch.
All right. Now, how do I... Oh, this guy's alive.
Yeah.
How do you grab him? Oh, sorry, dude.
While Dallas, Ross, and Jamie Sue get a first-hand look at the reserve led by Chief Beardy.
We're going to take a tour of Muskrat Dam. Everything that you see is locally owned and controlled.
From the town store to a family addictions treatment center to a local daycare, Muskrat Dam manages everything on its own.
So this is our water plant. I don't know when it was designed, maybe 30 years ago. Inside, all the moving parts are obsolete.
Oh, really?
Obsolete?
Obsolete.
But the group is about to learn that the water coming out of the taps here is nothing like home.
The water, it's drinkable, or?
Well, no. We've been on boiled water advisory 2003.
And is that just because of the contaminants in the
Well,
water?
the thing is
or
that the
filtration?
design we had here in terms of filtering system was not adequate.
Yeah.
Wow.
Isn't that kind of wrong, though? Don't you kind of think that's, like, not right? That's the way it is. That's the way it is.
But that's the way it is, unfortunately.
Right.
Yeah.
But, I mean...
It's not right, of course it's not right.
Muskrat Dam is among 140 reserves in Canada that lack the resources to provide safe drinking water for its people. The revelation shocks Jamie Sue.
They want the basic necessities of life. It should be available to them, including water to drink. I don't feel like anyone should have to boil their water in Canada. Like, everyone should have an equal standard of living if they so choose.
Later in the day, the men travel to the local school, while the women visit the health center.
Hello. Hello, I'm Ashley.
I'm Raya.
Nice to meet you.
Mariah Beardy is the health director.
So this is the clinical side here. We only have 2 nurses each day. There is no ambulance. We only have 1 medical van, which is not in very good shape.
They also lack a resident doctor. For Avonlea, a mother of 2, the situation is unthinkable.
I think this health center is similar to the one I grew up near. The difference being the doctors are in the town, so it's easier to be treated, but I can't fathom not having a doctor here right away.
I had a very scary situation where I almost lost my youngest. She came down very fast with pneumonia, and there was no nurse. So I called the nearest town. I said, what do I do? Like, my daughter's
Barely
turning
breathing,
blue.
yeah.
And she told me, go do what you can to go bust into the nursing station, like your daughter's lacking oxygen. We busted into the health center, and we got the oxygen in her. And meanwhile, I was talking to a nurse on speakerphone who was instructing me what to do. There was a float plane there. Somebody went to go pick up that nurse, and she came flying in here, and my daughter was medevac.
So that's scary. That was a serious situation.
Very serious.
Mariah's story hits close to home with Avonlea.
My son was 2 weeks old, and he had meningitis, bacterial meningitis. He's okay now, but if it was here, he would have died. Why stay here if a lot of people need medical treatment? Why is the community still here and not closer to civilization?
Like for me, I was born here. I was born in my community, in my house, in my mother's house. One of our teachings is to teach our children where they belong, to have a sense of belonging within their own people. Like we feel that connection with each other.
Over at Samson Beardy Memorial School, the men have a moment to reflect on their time here so far.
They put themselves into this kind of environment.
Yeah.
And it's not good.
No, we, what do you call it? Those is throwing good money after bad.
Yeah, I mean, I've never seen a copy of an original treaty, but I'd be willing to bet that 150 years ago, the treaty didn't say, we'll send you, millions of dollars a year to do what you need to do with it, and you can keep asking for more and more and more. I don't think the treaty said that.
No.
But for the first time on the journey, Dallas doesn't align with Ross and Don's way of thinking.
There's a huge debt owed to these people regardless. They were treated unfairly from the word go, if you ask me.
Well, I don't know.
My generation, which is 50 years old, my generation never went to residential schools. 50 or 100 years from now, oh, my great-great-grandfather was in residential school. I'm
No.
That's what I'm saying.
This is what we're dealing with today.
Whatever's happened with Native kids is happened with white kids, too.
Yeah.
It's nothing different.
I think so, too.
The men are about to get schooled on the realities of Indigenous education. In Muskrat Dam, youth education is a priority, and the community's commitment is evident at the local elementary school.
We have 5 classrooms. All our teachers are from the community.
Oh, nice.
Somebody said that it was kind of unique that way.
Roy Morris is the school's education director.
In Muskrat Dam, we have a bilingual, bicultural education program. And it's been going on for about 10 years now. We truly believe that the academics are embedded in any culture. Our education journey as a Native people, it's always been mainstream society's education. Our visitors have always wanted to change us, according to their terms.
Roy cares for 49 students from grades 1 to 8. But earning a diploma means attending high school in far-off Thunder Bay.
If you had a wish, would you wish that they all stayed here for the grade 12?
I suppose we would like to see them.
Yeah, you'd like to see them
stay here, yeah. But financially, it's not possible.
The communities in this region have a long legacy of losing their youth to far-off schools.
Have you only went to school in this community here?
No.
You went, yeah, do you leave here?
I went to different communities.
Right.
I went to residential school. I was born in the bush, and my mom and dad went up and down the river trapping and fishing and all that. One fall, a plane came in early, about 9 o'clock. And you know how little kids are. Excited, they want to see what's happening. We all went down to the dock. A pilot came in, and there were children right in front of him. He picked up the children and put them into the plane. I slipped away. And my brother was one of the people that got picked up and put into the plane. And my mother came out and said, your breakfast is ready. Could you go and get your brother? And I told her, I can't. And she says, why not?
And I looked across the lake, and there was a little wee speck of a plane. And I told her, my brother is in that plane. Same thing happened the next year, and this time I didn't get away. And I don't know where my brother ended up. I ended up in Solocaut Pelican Residential School.
Was it for, do you honestly believe it was for the better for these children?
Were they thinking
No. Do you have a child?
I don't.
Well, once you have a child, you get to love that child as soon as you're born.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Imagine a child being 5 years old, and I come and I take your child away.
I couldn't imagine.
Aha, there you are.
Right.
It's not good.
No, I understand that.
It's never good to take a child away from their family. But I grew up on the land. That was my early childhood education. So I knew what my culture was. I knew what my language was. And that helped me survive residential school. And that also was my calling to get back home.
The importance of keeping families together at home starts to sink in for Dallas.
I couldn't imagine that happening to my brother or sister. You know, as a sibling, you'd be heartbroken. From my perspective, I think that is one of the most cruel things that anybody could ever do to anybody, any family, in any situation.
The travelers' time in Muskrat Dam is up. All the six know about the next leg of their journey is that they are leaving an isolated fly-in reserve for a community deep in the heart of Alberta. 45 minutes south of Edmonton is Moskwachees, an amalgamation of 4 Cree reserves: Samson, Montana, Louisville, and Ermineskin. Trucker Don's driven this highway many times, and his perception of Moskwachees is based solely on what he's seen passing by it.
A comment that I made before about this reserve is you used to drive down the road, and when you started seeing piles of garbage in the ditch, you knew they were there.
With a population over 17,000, Moskwachees has a reputation for gangs, crime, and a high suicide rate. For the travelers, seeing the visible effects on the community for the first time, it's shocking.
There's graffiti all over a tarp instead of a wall.
Okay.
Right here, garbage, TV.
They got graffiti all over them, and
Last time I was here, these houses weren't here, and right now they look like they've been here for 40 or 50 years.
It's not very welcoming.
no.
Ross, who lives in nearby Edmonton, is struck by something else.
You notice you've never seen any people?
Yeah, why?
If you go to your house, that means you have to go somewhere and do something. You stay home, you don't have to do anything.
But he's about to have that assumption turned on its head.
Why are they pulling in there?
They're all camping here.
There's a powwow going on, that's why.
Is it?
Yeah, there's a powwow.
Oh yeah, look at it. So that's where everybody is.
Most of the community's residents are here at the Samson Cree Nation powwow. For 3 days, they will sing, dance, drum, and honor their culture.
Wow, this is a big, powwows are a big thing.
It's gonna be interesting to see if we're well welcomed or not.
But for Dallas, Ashley, and Dawn, the idea of attending this gathering as outsiders makes them nervous.
We don't belong here.
No. The 2 girls in that hut did not want us here.
No?
No.
Check this guy's hair. Check this guy's hair. Holy.
Take note of the number of police vehicles ahead of us.
We're sticking out like orange jumpsuits, man. I'm definitely a little uneased about staying here.
Sketchy.
The powwow is in full swing, drawing festival goers from all across the continent. While 3 of the travelers have joined the crowd, Dawn, Ashley, and Dallas stay put in their vehicle.
Are we supposed to still be in here? Or are we going to get out, or what are we going to do?
I'm good at staying here right now.
Yeah.
They finally muster the courage to join the rest of the group.
Okay, I'm going to get out.
Go check the scene, buddy.
With well over 1,000 dancers, the Samson Powwow is one of the largest in North America. The travelers are greeted by Monique Cardinal of Samson Cree Nation.
This would be considered a ceremony, but it's also a celebration because it's kind of explaining how proud of who we are as being First Nations, and this is our way of showing it.
Wow.
It involves, as you can see, all ages, from little girls, little boys to elders, and it's just really the power of getting together.
We drove through town and I was wondering why there was nobody around, but this is why there's nobody around, right?
Yeah, and just to clarify that powwow is open to anyone. It's
Right.
not just First Nations people,
Okay.
it's anyone. It's really, there is nothing that you could feel worried about being here. It's somewhere where you should feel welcomed and don't feel afraid to say hello or get to know others. If you want, feel free, go explore, and welcome to the powwow.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
With their initial fears eased, the six break up and witness the power of Cree songs and culture. And Ashley's already re-evaluating her feelings.
My initial reaction when we came in here wasn't the best. I'm trying to shake that to get a different experience. The dancing's sweet, and the drumming, and just how everyone is so different.
Meanwhile, Ross, Avonlea, and Jamie Sue talk with local Kirk Buffalo. He provides insight into the community far deeper than the headlines.
As dysfunctional as Musquetees may sound in the news, we're very rich with language, our elders, and the traditions that I want to showcase
That's what
tonight.
That's what we're here today, and this is, you know what I mean? I live in Edmonton, and I've never come to this, and this is very impressive.
But Ross is conflicted about what he saw in town versus what he's experiencing here.
Like, to me, you drive in here, the houses, you know what I mean? It's, like, to me, just as an outsider, it's not very welcoming.
Yes, the courthouse is full. Our suicide rate is high. See, that sells news, but if we become friends and say, I'll show you the beauty, I'll show you our rodeo grounds, I'll show you our Sundance, I'll show you our recreation centers.
Where's the news out of here? Why aren't they here?
They're not here because they haven't had a crime. We haven't had a suicide. We haven't had a murder.
Yeah, that's a big
That's
issue.
the only time they're here.
Across the way, Monique tells Dallas how important this powwow is to the community.
The powwow is still alive. It's been around for a very, very long
Right.
time, and just to know that like it's not gone, our culture's still here.
Yeah.
It's really powerful.
Yeah.
It is. Yeah.
Oh, there's nothing more that can embrace a culture than something like this. It's unbelievable.
Experiencing his first powwow has had a major effect on Dallas.
You know, at first I definitely was a little skeptical. You don't know if you're gonna be welcome or not. After talking to some of the people, they assured me that, hey man, it's not like that whatsoever. Man, I just never seen anything like this, and like, you know, just a race come together and people come together, and you know, just very proud of what they're doing right here. So I'm just kind of just soaking it all in.
Day 2 in Musquetees. The six are on their way to meet Monique at the former site of one of the largest residential schools in Canada. Due to the community's location in the heart of Alberta, Ermineskin Residential School was uniquely situated right inside the reserve. Today, it's been replaced by 3 modern schools that include Cree culture and teachings as part of the curriculum. But the residential school legacy has left lasting scars on the community that have still yet to heal.
In front of you is a plaque here to honor the survivors. And as you can see, that you are surrounded by 3 schools. The first one being a kindergarten school, and the middle being an elementary, and this would be junior high and high school. Before, there was such horrific events happening on this specific ground, and for now present day to have youth attending schools here that no longer have those limits as to being the person that they are. We just use it to an advantage and take strength because, you know, we never had this opportunity to learn our culture and our language. Now we do.
So why, like my question to the younger generation who are not or were never in residential schools, why do they hold so much anger?
Somehow it always circles back to because we were taken and put in residential schools. So it's, Why are you laughing, Ross?
No, but that's what I mean. They always twist it.
It always comes full circle back
gets
to that
twisted.
issue, and I didn't do that. So inform me about what happened.
My dad didn't do it either. Your dad didn't do it either.
I can't speak for everyone, but it connects back to having these grandparents who were at the age of 6 to under 18 experiencing that, and then for them to raise their children. And you can see it in many of the First Nations communities that, you know, they struggle to give love when they weren't really receiving it on their end, right?
I just feel like we're desensitized to it because it didn't happen to our own people and it didn't happen to our own family. If our grandfathers told these stories about what happened, we would definitely have a greater sense of appreciation and saying, oh, hey, well, it didn't happen to us, no problem. That seems to be my issue. That kind of seems to be discussion here, right, Ross? That's what you kind of feel like, isn't that right?
Like I said, my grandfather was born in 1902. He came to Canada in the 20s. He had nothing to do with it.
Right.
My father had nothing to do with it. I had nothing to do with it.
But what if it would have been your grandfather? It's very understandable to see why there is that tension there.
As I said, there's lots of things that happen in the world.
Of course.
We've got to go look ahead. We
I
can't
understand that, but you can't just overlook it, man.
No, we're not.
You can't just overlook what happened here.
If we were overlooking it, that sign wouldn't be here.
How can the average Canadian worry about something they've never even heard of, though? Like, that's the big issue, is that no one knows.
I didn't even know anything about it. And now I think it's one of the cruelest things I've ever heard in my entire life. So it is it not?
It's nowhere near the cruelest thing that's happened to human beings, I'll guarantee you that.
In Canada, I would say for sure. To get kidnapped, if you got kidnapped from your house and told you couldn't practice your own native tongue, and if you did, that you could be sexually abused, you know,
like I
starved.
said, we know it's bad, yes.
Yeah, come on, man. Let's not be oblivious to this fact. Before 12 days ago, I didn't even know anything about it. And the more I'm learning, the more that stereotypical views is pissing me off. It really is.
Dallas has made a monumental shift in his attitude towards Indigenous people.
Basically, man, I just wasn't having it. Somebody's trying to have, like, you know, share a moment with you, and it's just going right over your head. Like, man, give your head a shake, dude. Like, listen, pay attention. I think that some of these old school people are gonna probably think the same way day 1 to day 28. For myself personally, it took me about day 6, day 7. I was really starting to change my perspectives, and I was starting to see different walks of life and, you know, how people have it really, really hard. Things weren't always easy for me, but man, do I ever feel privileged after seeing how these people grew up. So when you're so narrow-minded and your old school beliefs and just be like, oh, well, I thought this my whole life, so I'm gonna keep thinking this, like, you. That's me, man.
Ooh, wow.
For their next stop in Musqueam, Dawn, Ashley, and Jamie Sue meet with Michael Bear, cultural teacher at Ermineskin High School.
Every morning, we sing on this drum. The students made this drum. We teach them those skills. They say that the Musqueam Cree is the hub of ceremony capital. People come from all corners to come learn ceremony. And our elder here, he talks of those stories of elders that have passed on now that have said, if it wasn't for the Musqueam Cree, we would not have ceremony.
Ashley is confused. How can a community that places so much value on ceremony have so many deep-rooted issues?
We've driven around the community and we noticed that the homes age-wise aren't that old, but they look extremely run down, and seeing the graffiti and just having no pride in their homes. Why is it that, you know, kids in this community are destroying the homes?
You just said it yourself. It's that pride factor. How many of them actually go to ceremony, live the real Nehelp Matson Cree way of life? How many of them got that Nehelwewin speak the language? They have no sense of identity. Due to, you know, residential schools, Christianity took over a lot of northern communities and, you know, outlawed ceremonies. They were banned. The 30s, 40s, 50s, into the 60s, finally they started rejuvenating to come back. In one hand, we still have to retain our language, our culture, our identity. But yet to live in today's society, we have to flip that over. We have to conform. and conformity, which is education, right? We have to get educated in order to live and thrive. Where do we find balance?
Don's concerned about how much educating Indigenous youth will cost him as a taxpayer.
Where do you get that money? Indigenous people's money. As far as I know, the government gets money through taxes, so I pay taxes, so the money you get was my money.
Sometimes I can get myself into a rant and a roar sometimes of social media and Facebook because you hear it from Canadians. Well, your money comes from taxpayers' dollars.
Yeah.
And really, it's not. Every First Nation was given a trust many, many, many years ago. Mm-hmm. And a portion of that money they used to build off of the interest was, well, we'll work with that interest for the First Nations people. Mm-hmm. That's where all of our money comes from for our programming and whatnot, right?
Why is that?
It's a treaty obligation. And that's one thing I want to teach you guys. Do you believe me that you are a treaty person as well?
I am not educated on the treaty.
Yeah, I don't know anything about it.
Yeah. How is a treaty developed?
We have no idea. That's why we're here in front of you.
It's between two sovereign nations. Once Canada was formed, the Queen gave over the power of authority to the Canadian government and the responsibility to uphold those treaty promises. And one of those treaty promises, well, you'll never be able to give back. Anything below a depth of a plow belong to First Nations people. And the depth of a plow is this, right? When you look at an old school plow, that was all that Europeans were allowed to sustain off the land. So you look at all the resources and minerals that have been excavated throughout Canada, we're supposed to have a 50-50 balance with the Canadian government. How do you think Canada was able to develop a lot of these infrastructures as a young country? There's no way in hell that they could do that without the Indian money.
He was probably the most informative person that I've talked to, and he shed a lot of light on certain things. I thought reserves were funded by our taxes, and I was struggling with that. Talking with him and getting a better perspective on how their community is treated, it's frustrating hearing it, I guess, out of the horse's mouth, that my views have changed.
Later in the day, all six reconvene to travel to their next unknown destination. But newfound tensions boil over on the drive.
Like, you're 26 years old?
Yeah.
And you never heard about residential schools? Here's what I'm gonna tell you. Get the Maclean's magazine ordered to your house every month.
So every Canadian should get a subscription to Maclean's magazine
they're gonna be that
to get educated. How come we're not educated that in school?
With his recent change of heart, Dallas is taking Ross head on.
No, it doesn't matter, man. The money is not the issue anymore.
They asked for money.
They signed the treaties years ago that agreed to all these things. That's it, man. They need money to live.
And Avonlea and Dawn are as far apart as ever.
When I hear a story that somebody tells about how they were beaten, I haven't heard the story about whether they were beaten before they went to the
Isn't it
residential
enough
school.
that they just say, I feel I was
That's
beaten?
just part of life. I didn't talk to their parents. I wasn't here in 1886.
Are you sure?
Don doesn't know it, but he's about to finally meet someone who was severely abused at residential school. The traveler's next stop is at the house of Musqueam's Cree elder, Rick Lightning, and his wife, Inez.
Hello. Hi, come in.
Welcome to my house.
Thank you.
Nice to meet you.
Rick spent his whole life here, raising 11 children and 33 grandchildren. He knows this community as well as anyone.
The seed that was planted in this reserve was residential school. The resin of that school that's why they call it intergenerational trauma. That's still happening in our reserve. Especially here because Musqueam's had the biggest residential school.
Rick speaks from first-hand experience. He spent 6 years at Ermineskin Residential School.
So a lot of times people say, why can't we just get over it? How old are you?
50.
I'm 64. And I've seen things that are unbelievable. It took me years. I'm an alcoholic, by the way. I've been sober 26 years. I finally dealt with my issues, worked with my issues, what happened to me in residential school, and I'm able to understand who I am and what I'm doing now. I also understand my own sexuality as well. That was a real big question. And then you're growing up when you're being sexually abused, and so you try to figure out, who are you? My age group, there's only 5 of us alive. The rest died in my age group in my tribe. My brother was in residential school, and my sister-in-law were in residential school. They died alcoholics. Whatever happened to them in there, but the effect on their children was unbelievable. My father went to the industrial school in Red Deer. He told me a story. They were working out in the fields, and there was a big hole there, and their bigger boys were bringing in a wheelbarrow, and they dumped it, and there was all these little bodies that fell in there, and one of them was their little brother, David Lightning. Those kind of things, and when he told me when he was 7 years old, the pain in his voice, and the anger and all the different emotions that he was going through, I could hear it in his voice. I was really surprised. We had to go to Supreme Court to get the numbers of the children that died. How do you just get over it when it's so deep in your psyche and believe me, I'd love to get over it. I'd love to say, I'm done today, I'm okay, I'm fine. But everyone, and this is my own personal statement, that every one of us that went to residential school came out of it with some mental issues. Some of us were able to deal with them, some of us weren't.
It is important to Rick that the 6 participate in a Cree sweat lodge. Here, they will get a chance to experience a spiritual ceremony firsthand. As the ceremonial grandfather rocks are being prepared for the sweat, Rick gives the group a deeper insight into what they are about to undertake.
Everybody wanted to save us, but the problem with saving us, they've left us with no religion, no belief system. And so that's something that's important to understand, is that we have a way of prayer. Churches didn't bring God here. We had prayer. And this is for you to pray for your families at home, wherever they're at. And there's no prayer, set prayer. It's your prayer from your heart.
After spending the night at Rick and Inez's home, they gather for breakfast to reflect on their first Indigenous ceremonial experience.
It relaxes you 110%. Like, I slept like, she had to wake me up, actually.
Man, I got hot at one point.
The second one was hot.
Yeah, I felt like my shoulders were burning off.
But there's a thing in the sweat that's cool. It can get so hot, and you pray hard. When you focus and you get beyond that heat.
You don't feel it.
You don't feel it.
Yeah.
I thought it was beautiful because growing up, I would pray only in hard times. And I always prayed for myself. And then so to hear that you're praying for other people just really drove home the importance of that.
For me, it was just like a spiritual connection. And I've never had anything like that before because I was never much one for religion. Like, it was a game changer in some aspects.
I knew you guys were relaxed, because remember they were both laying on their sides, like, all right, start her up. That's a good sign. Yeah.
There was only one person unable to complete the sweat. Due to concerns about his health, Don opted to leave early on.
With that steam and that heat, I couldn't breathe enough, so it just got to the point where I was having a real tough time getting enough air, and I was getting a little dizzy from it.
Face to face with a survivor of severe residential school abuse, Don finally has his chance to challenge him about how bad it really was.
How was yesterday for you, even though,
Well, it was interesting, and I learning. And I think that, what we've experienced with you is clear, open, honest experiences and information that I think is very valuable.
Ashley and Avonlea can't believe what they're hearing. Don is suddenly unwilling to express the same views he's harped on since day one.
Has your view changed on saying that you wish someone had put you in a residential school?
No,
Has that changed?
I see. You said residential school, and I didn't say residential school. I said I wished I was taken away from my father.
And put in a residential school.
See, as a kid growing up, I wished somebody would take me away, because I didn't have to go to school to get beaten. I got beaten at home. Regardless, my view hasn't changed on that. My view hasn't changed on that.
I don't think your views will change.
The six have split into two distinct factions, with Dallas and the women on one side and Ross and Dawn on the other.
And I think Canada needs to know that these children were taken from healthy families. There was no alcoholism in that time compared to today.
They've been bringing alcohol to this country since the late 1800s. So
yes,
you can't confirm that they weren't.
No. You're not going to tell me the whole.
I'm not saying. You know what I mean?
No.
We don't have the answers that far back.
No. Wait, let me finish. That's an excuse the priests used. That's an excuse the government used. That they're all drunks. Why did they take a whole village of children out of there?
Because they wanted to assimilate them to like the white people.
They didn't assimilate them. They put them in institutions.
I know, but they
Where's
wanted
the
to teach them
assimilation?
English. They wanted them to be like us.
And did it work?
No, I didn't say it worked.
60 years of residential
I know.
schools. When did they figure it out it didn't work?
Probably a year. I don't know. I don't have a clue. I wasn't around.
How many people had to die in that experiment
And
too,
then,
right?
But the thing is, at the same time, you're forgetting one thing. They made money off these children. Churches made money off these children. These children weren't taken for free. It's a money-making venture by the churches.
Just like the schools nowadays get paid by the government for every kid they got in them.
No, but this time,
it's the same thing
you
now.
get to go home.
True.
Why are you here?
Huh?
Why are you here?
Why am I in this house, or why
like,
am I?
I'm here to learn. Dallas is learning. You can see that. Jamie Sue, Ashley.
I'm catching on to what's going on, and I'm trying to, I'm the average white guy, honest.
No, you're not.
Yes, I am. I talk to.
I hate to say this, he is.
I am the average white guy.
Maybe in this province?
No, I'm not asking. That's all we're talking
Here's
about.
an example. I came in here being ignorant towards a few things. I thought that all of our tax money was paying for everything that's around us. And I've learned from being in this home and from yesterday, it's not our tax-paying money. The stuff that we're hearing from you and from others is stuff that Canadians don't know. It's stuff that Canadians aren't hearing. I don't know clearly, if everyone will change.
But even if my views aren't what you want them to be,
I don't want them to be anything.
I know, but they're not. My views aren't wrong.
We can't plead ignorance anymore.
No, I am the average white guy in this province.
He is.
Honest. It's just the way it is.
The problem is he's 100% right as who it's not narrow-mindedness, it's because he didn't know. And so when you don't know, you create things.
But the thing is, he's learning, Rick. He's learning, and he's knowing, and he's still not changing his mind.
I know, but he can't change.
That's what's bugging us, right?
No, but he's not going to change right away. Even if it's a small change, saying, hey, I went to Rick Lightning's house. It was a nice house. I had a good sweat, and I had lunch. That's a positive thing. And you're right. Most of Canada is like you, and attitudes are not going to change overnight. But the reality is, in a day-to-day life, when you go home to your families, you will talk about your experience. And this experience for you guys is all about you. Not as a Canadian society, but more as you as individuals. And saying, hey, I was able to participate and I got to see things I never knew about. I slept in an Indian's house. It was okay. Just having you here is a good thing.
The group's time in Maskwacis is over. And the more they learn, the more divided they become.
These don't want to be proven wrong. I came here with ignorant views, and I'm open and honest about it. Yeah, I was ignorant towards stuff, but I'm being honest with all of these guys, being like, you know what? I was wrong. And then you have two people who, in my mind, just don't give a
Over the last couple of days, there seems to have been kind of a rift between us, and we'll see which way it goes. But I still believe the same thing as I believed 20 days ago, and some of my opinions might not change.
Things are only going to get tougher on the final leg of their journey.
We're really looking at the long-term effects of a genocide.
Throw those gloves on, we need your help.
How I came to be here, I killed somebody.
I don't feel that I'm a racist person.
I feel like he's the face of that, older generation where it's racist.
What do people really think about Indigenous Canadians?
I think of alcoholism. I think of drug abuse.
A whole bunch of partying and flop houses.
They just always get money and handouts.
How are they the worst off when they're given so much?
We are being made to pay for something that we didn't do.
Where's my money going?
They don't paint their houses. They don't fix windows.
Welfare's not a career.
They're angry at white people.
I mean, they want you to feel sorry for them.
Get off your ass if you're unhappy and go do something about it.
Feels like it's just a lost cause at this point.
Most Canadians have never taken the time to get to know Indigenous people or visit their communities. This group represents those Canadians. All with strong opinions, they've been invited to leave their everyday lives behind and embark on a unique journey deep into Indigenous Canada.
Welcome, all of you, right here to Winnipeg's North End.
Ross, a public servant and family man.
The past is the past. If you're going to worry about the past, the future's not going to do you no favors.
Avonlea, married mother of 2.
I didn't create a residential school and force anyone into it.
Dawn, truck driver.
When somebody says that this is their land and it always has been, no, actually, it used to belong to dinosaurs.
Gym owner Ashley.
I changed my life around. Why can't you do it for yourself?
Animal lover Jamie Sue.
It's such a big problem that I feel like I couldn't make a difference at all.
Dallas, lobster fisherman and welder.
If we're going to continue to support Aboriginal people and not see any results, then when is it going to end?
So far on the journey, the 6 have experienced a different world within their own country.
There, you got him. Go, 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 go.
They've had their views confronted.
Do you believe me that you are a treaty person as well?
And their emotions pushed to the limit.
You don't know.
I'm not finished yet. They need money to live.
Some have transformed their opinions.
The more I'm learning, the more that stereotypical views is pissing me off.
While others have not.
Even if my views aren't what you
I
want
don't want
them
them
to
to
be.
be anything.
I know, my views aren't wrong.
But the travelers are about to face their biggest test yet.
I mean, we're really looking at the long-term effects of a genocide.
As they hit the front lines to experience life on the streets.
Throw those gloves on, we need your help.
Then go to prison to learn about life on the inside.
How I came to be here, I killed somebody.
Where the divide in the group is at a breaking point.
I don't feel that I'm a racist person.
I feel like he's the face of that, older generation where it's racist.
My response is always, who are the real racists?
The 6 are heading south to their next stop on the journey, Calgary. It's a road well traveled for many Maskwacis Cree residents, leaving the reserve in search of a fresh start. But city life can be foreign and unforgiving. There are many trappings here that await Indigenous newcomers, and many of them end up on the streets. Indigenous people represent just 3% of Calgary's overall population, yet 20% of their homeless population.
This should be fun.
Today, Ashley, Avonlea, and Ross are visiting Alpha House, an inner-city detox shelter.
Hi.
Hello.
Hi.
We're harm reduction, so we're not telling anybody that they have to quit this or stop doing this in order to have a safe place to stay.
Right.
Wade Maud runs Alpha House's Indigenous program.
Our focus is to get them in, get them safe, and hopefully get them to a mat where they can sleep it off. And then we do detox assessments every morning.
Ross is used to seeing Indigenous homeless people on his daily commute, but he has no compassion for them.
Living here in Edmonton, you run into a few of them downtown. If you have to, take drugs and alcohol because of your choices, then that's another choice you made that's probably not a good one. So, too bad for you.
Wade takes the group on a smudge to spiritually cleanse the building, something he does twice daily. He leads the group to a sit-down with Michael Firing Stoney, a former addict who's clawed his way back from rock bottom. He now works to help others do the same.
It gets down to we're saving lives, right?
Right.
I was out on the street for almost 25 years as an addict, and when I got intoxicated, I was angry and I acted out, and so consequently I wasn't allowed in any of those other places, so this was my last resort. I mean, we're really looking at the long-term effects of a genocide, right? An attempted genocide. What the work we're doing is the very beginnings of that, addressing all that trauma and historical damage that was done, right? And for me, it's a personal experience because I'm just starting to come to terms with growing up in foster care, experiencing racism without even understanding it, and always having that sense of not belonging and who am I and who are my people, all that stuff, right? A lot of our people that we're dealing with here, this may be the first place they ever get to be okay with that, with identifying as an Indian,
Not far away, Dawn, Jamie Sue, and Dallas are also about to meet some Indigenous homeless people.
How you doing, man? Welcome.
But in different circumstances.
Dallas, pleasure to meet you, Sydney. Likewise.
Every week, the Aboriginal Friendship Centre of Calgary hosts an Indigenous feast for people living on the streets. Sydney Gill is a member of their outreach team.
The men and women that you're going to meet here and interact today are all survivors of either residential school, 60 Scoop, Child Family Services, prison, like myself, or caught up in the cycles of homelessness and all that kind of stuff.
Right. A reformed inmate, Sydney spent 10 years behind bars. Here, everyone has a story.
You get to see who you would think the old drunken Indian on the corner has so much knowledge from his grandparent and come out with these old songs and all this great old stuff. It's amazing the level of again, knowledge in these men and women who at one time in my life, I saw there's the drunken Indian.
Grab some plates and start giving them to the people. The biggest smile on your face ever.
The trio serves lunch and are introduced to some of the Indigenous guests.
Jamie, this is some of my friends and family here. She just recently came from Muscatcheese, bro. That's where these two are from. Their family's from there.
After a tragic incident, Darren and Verna D left the reserve to restart their lives in the city.
Tomorrow is gonna be 10 years since I lost my daughter. 10 years I wait for justice. There's nothing still. A lot of people tell me to let it go, to forget about it, but it's my grief, my loss, my daughter.
Verna D's daughter was murdered, and the case remains unsolved. The trauma still affects her.
The trust issues was gone when they shot my daughter. I didn't trust nobody. I didn't even trust my own husband. But I had to stand up for myself. I fight on my own.
After listening to Verna D and others who shared their own tales of tragedy, Jamie Sue is appalled.
Hearing these stories, my heart goes out to them. What a hopeless, lonely feeling they must have. And to have to leave your home to try to find safety and healing is horrible. It really puts a dark stain on the Canada that I thought I knew.
Back at Alpha House, Avonlea, Ross, and Ashley are about to face Indigenous homelessness on the front lines.
We operate 24/7, and we average about 54 transports a day, so we're extremely busy.
Tonight, they're patrolling the streets with the DOPE team, short for Downtown Outreach Addictions Partnership. They get people under the influence off the streets safely.
The idea is around public intoxication as more of a social issue rather than a criminal issue, and that it made sense to get people with addiction issues connected to a social agency sooner than later.
Sometimes we actually are first responders because we happen to be on scene before they even know it's happening, right?
Yeah.
So
you're just a drunk person's cab.
Ross is about to have his views on Indigenous homelessness shaken up.
We'll see if we can convince Ross that it's not a cab service.
You really are gonna have fun with Ross.
The dope team has room for just one additional passenger. Ashley volunteers.
we see a lot of people coming here because the idea was always the economy is so good here, right? And of course, when they get here and they're homeless, addictions flare up, right? Things happen. It's a absolutely heart-wrenching situation. Dope team, Dean speaking.
Police have detained an intoxicated woman at a downtown park. They need to get her to safety immediately.
Throw those gloves on. I'm gonna need your help.
In her condition, this young Indigenous woman is highly vulnerable.
That's good. You're good. Perfect.
By taking her back to Alpha House, she can safely recover without ending up in jail or far worse.
Well, let's go inside and get some rest. Okay. She's gonna help you in too, okay? It's okay. Well, I just want to make sure you don't fall.
Ashley is touched by the team's compassion. They treat the woman like a person, not a criminal.
Do you have anything in your pockets?
There's no aggression, there's no pushing the buttons, there's no arguing. Even the intake with the people at the front desk, just how very welcoming and warm they are.
We'll get some rest there.
Round 2 on the streets. This time, it's Avonlee's turn.
Dope team.
But the next call could be dangerous.
Are you expecting he's going to be aggressive when we show up?
The Indigenous man they're about to pick up next has a reputation for violence.
He'll be at the bus stop down on this hill. Probably shouldn't be too hard. He's not a small man.
For Avonlee, a young mother of 2, the thought of sitting next to him is frightening.
I'm not a big person. I don't have any means to protect myself. He's probably 2 feet taller than me.
But she's about to learn that things aren't always as they seem.
What's your name?
My name is Trent.
Trent Avonlee.
Avonlee?
Avonlee.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
I'm from Siksika.
Where's that?
Siksika is a Blackfoot First Nation southeast of Calgary. Trent left years ago, but struggles to find his place off the reserve.
My mom is still there. She's taking care of my son.
How old's your son?
My son, he's 7 years old.
7? I have a 2.5-year-old and a 1.5-year-old.
I got 2 boys.
Yeah, I got 2 boys.
My second born, he's 9 years old.
Really?
He's my boy.
Yeah.
They're taking Trent to Alpha House after receiving surgery on his foot.
When I was in the hospital, I had nobody to visit me. Couldn't get a hold of my family. They would not even let me leave the unit.
Wow.
Why? Because they thought I was gonna start punching out all the nurses and doctors and security. So stereotype, man. Sometimes you steer to that side. You wander. Your spirit goes this way, goes that way. No wonder why you wake up in the morning and you feel depressed. You feel lonely. Your spirit is out there still, wandering.
How can you bring them back together?
You gotta speak your name and you gotta pray. Nice to meet you.
It was nice to meet you. Thank you for spending some time with me.
Go around the corner, you pick up some more people and listen to their stories. Courtesy, common courtesy goes a long way.
Yeah.
Right? Anyways.
By simply listening, Avonlee breaks through Trent's violent image and gets to know the real person underneath.
He was definitely sharing some very thoughtful things, and sometimes people just need to talk. He seemed like he wanted to make that change. He said a few times, I'm not gonna be like this. I don't wanna keep going like this. And hopefully he's able to turn it around. He's still young, he's only 30.
He can be a very aggressive individual. It's a facade, right? He needs to do it to survive on the street. But this is the individual. I was really happy that we actually picked him up because he's an awesome guy. We have a lot of awesome people that we're trying to help out.
The six continue their journey through Alberta. Next stop, Edmonton, home for Ross and Dawn.
We've been going to a lot of cities, but we're to come one where we know where the bad parts are. Yeah. Because we've been to a bunch of other places where, you know, we don't know where the bad parts are or the good parts are, right?
Dallas also knows the city. He spent 6 years here, working as a welder.
The people are pretty good here, but Edmonton's been the myrtle capital of Canada for a couple years. Call it Edmonton at times.
Dawn connects the city's reputation for crime with the Indigenous population.
The home invasion stuff is quite often in the areas where the Indigenous people are hanging out.
Canada's prison population is disproportionately represented by Inuit, First Nations, and Métis people. In some provinces, as high as 76%, in spite of the fact that they make up just 4% of the overall population. Today, the men and women are splitting up to find out why so many end up on the inside.
Welcome to Stan Daniels Healing Center.
Thank you very much.
Marlene Orr is the warden of Stan Daniels, a specialized Indigenous correctional facility that employs traditional healing techniques.
We work from the perspective of teachings that our elders have gave us. The other thing, and the most important and the fundamental key to healing, is self-determination. The Healing Lodge was set up so that we could address the root causes of people coming into jail. People have to go through that process of understanding what's happened systemically and then how the trauma of Indian residential school has carried on, how it impacts them in their life, and if we can bring them to that point, we can work with them on their healing.
Not far away,
Come on in. Welcome to Buffalo Sage Wellness House.
Warden Claire Carefoot gives the women a tour of a female Indigenous healing lodge.
This is a minimum security penitentiary, and we bring them here to continue and complete their healing. So come on up and I'll show you our facility. Okay.
Buffalo Sage has no bars, and the corrections officers don't wear uniforms. To Avonlea, it looks nothing like a prison.
The women that are here, they're prisoners.
Right.
Essentially, like they've committed a crime to be in prison. How do they end up here versus in a jail?
Well, they end up in a federal penitentiary first. They've got to prove themselves there first, that they're on their healing path. Anybody who is truly involved in the culture and following the way and not playing the game, but is truly involved, do not come back to prison.
Back at Stan Daniels, Warden Marlene Orr takes Ross, Dawn, and Dallas to meet an inmate. Here, inmates are always addressed by their first name.
Hi, Alex.
How's it going, Alex? Good. Dallas. I'm Ross.
Alex has been at Stan Daniels for 4 months after spending nearly a year at a federal penitentiary.
Here you're entrusted. Like I said, the people aren't wearing suits or dressed up as guards or anything.
Right,
Like,
okay.
You get a sense of well-being.
Right.
Right? And you build a relationship. You don't got people just yelling at you or, you know. It's hard. They break you down. Like, you know, they break you down in those places.
You feel a lot more comfortable in an establishment like this versus where you were.
Yes, it makes you feel like a human being. I was a heavy drug addict, like, you know. My mom wasn't really around in my life when I was a youth.
Yeah.
So I just was angry about the whole my mom situation, leaving when I was a kid, and But it took me to have a drug overdose, and well, I committed my crime, and then I tried to escape from reality and almost killed myself, right? So it's been a long road.
Inmates at Stan Daniels learn traditional skills and can earn money from the sale of their creations. Alex is helping make a star blanket that could fetch up to $1,000.
Oh, nice.
So this is where it goes down.
Even Ross is impressed.
This would be one of the last things I'd be thinking that guys would be doing, eh?
Yeah.
No, but power to you, because it's
promoting their culture, right?
And it's giving you a skill.
What kind of steps did you need to take or do to basically get yourself in this situation instead of being behind bars?
I had to be willing to give myself up to this and actually want to learn. I got 4 years for break and enter. It was a home invasion. There was an individual that got hurt. I did not cause.
But you were there.
Yeah, I was.
Yeah.
I was a bad individual at one point in my life, yes. My little brother, he was like my little brother to me.
Yeah.
Okay? It was my guardian's son. She was my babysitter since I was this tall.
Yeah.
And I knew her son since he was in diapers. I used to hold him, you know? And I felt as his protector. He started getting involved in crime. I called him, and I went and lived with him, and I was trying to help him as well, get out of that lifestyle, but I was just doing more drugs. I ended up in that situation where they wanted to do a crime, and I went as his protector. I didn't want to go, you know? But I was so high, I went with them, you know, and when it was all over, I knew it was wrong, like, you know? It was wrong.
Did he end up getting in trouble too, like you?
Yeah, he did, but he's no longer with us anymore.
He's passed away?
Yeah. I tried to get him to change his life, and he got murdered. He got murdered a year and a half ago, or almost 2 years, yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah. I loved him, man.
You know what the nice thing is for you to do? Is have a good life.
I know. I'm never going back.
The time spent with Alex is a breakthrough for Ross. For the first time, he's affected by the words he's hearing.
If putting people into an environment where they can grab onto their culture helps them become better Canadians, I think this is a fine place.
Tomorrow, Avonlea, Jamie Sue, and Ashley will get an opportunity to speak with a female inmate. Day 2 in Edmonton.
Hello, come in.
The women are meeting an inmate at the Indigenous Female Healing Center, Buffalo Sage.
This is Trina. Trina has agreed to tell you her story. You want to introduce yourself?
Sure, I'm Jamie Sue.
Trina.
Trina's been at Buffalo Sage for 13 months. But prior to being admitted, she spent 3.5 years behind bars.
Next to each other downstairs. Nice to meet you again.
It was a tragic path that led her here.
I grew up in Birch Lake. It's a little reserve. It's kind of an extension of Soto First Nations in Saskatchewan.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't remember how old I was when I left. My dad went to jail. Alcohol was a big part of growing up and stuff.
Yeah.
And there was violence and other things happening in the house and stuff. And the foster homes that I went into were, some of them were racist.
Mm-hmm.
There was this one foster home that I was in where the foster mother waited for mine and my brother's worker to leave. And she made us eat on the floor with her dog while her family sat at the table.
Really?
Oh my God.
Yep.
So can I ask how long you've, like what your sentence was?
How I came to be here, I killed somebody. Someone that I was close to. You know, I knew his family.
So was alcohol the fuel behind it for you?
Yeah, I was drinking when that happened. I blacked out a few times that night. They're like, well, you know what we're holding you on? And I'm like, no. And they're like, for murder. And then they told me who, and I was just like, I was like, you know, it was hard to hear that. I hope that, you know, that they can forgive me. Because the ripple effect of what I did, I went pretty far.
What made you in a prison cell decide, you know, I need to work on myself?
You know, I was like, do I want the rest of my life to be like this? And I wanted to break that cycle, to give my baby a chance.
How old is your son, if you don't mind?
My baby's 7. He'll be 8 in October.
And do you get to see him?
I finally do. Yeah. Yeah, he's such a handsome little man.
What does it look like for you when you think about the future? You're gonna be out of here and you'll have your son back.
I see a place for him that he can come home to in his own room, you know, a stable job, a clean life, definitely a clean life, because I'm done with that.
Back at Stan Daniels, the men sit down with Métis parole officer Leora Muse. After 2 days on the inside, they have more questions than answers.
We're learning that, like, a good portion of Aboriginal people are being over-incarcerated in the prisons and jails. Do you know why that is?
When I went to university, I'm actually from Toronto. We talked about over-representation in prison populations, and that can be attributed to over-policing and, I believe, systemic racism, and therefore overcharged, over-convicted, and over-represented in the prison population. There's also a school of thought that the system itself is racist and that persons in power and persons in positions of authority hold these sentiments. And when they see an Indigenous person in front of them, they have already decided.
Don takes exception to Leora's assessment of the justice system.
Their background, their experience before they got in the prison system seems to me to be something that would contribute to them doing things that would get them in the system, where maybe the average population doesn't have such a high influence of that type of...
Well, I just have this opinion that nobody was born bad. You are where you are. You're a product of your environment, and you're a product of the things that you've seen and that have been done to you. Once you start kind of putting it together, connecting the dots, you can really see, yeah, I can see how this person would have done that or had those attitudes or behaved in such a way. Because when the system itself is racist, it's really, really hard for Aboriginal people to have opportunity. I'm a proud Canadian, and I love this country. And it hurts me to think that people have done these things and implemented these systems of oppression in a country that, you know, sings about freedom in their national anthem and freedom for all. And these are our First Nations. It's not right, and it's not part of the spirit of being Canadian.
The 6 participants' time in Edmonton is over. Jamie Sue has been moved from her time spent with Trina.
She's on the right path and the right journey, and time will help heal it. Breaking that generational abuse in her family, her son won't hopefully have to go through anything near what she did.
But Don's taken the concept of systemic racism personally.
I don't feel that I'm a racist person. You keep hearing this, you're white, so therefore you're racist. You're listening to on the news and everything else, and my response is always, who are the real racists?
I think Don is definitely a little bit of a bigot-minded. I'm just gonna be honest. There's a stereotype about those older generations, you know what I mean? And I feel like he's the face of that, older generation where it's, racist.
The 6 travelers are on the final leg of their journey. They don't know it yet, but they are going to Ahousaht First Nation, a reserve on the west side of Vancouver Island. And the only way to get there is by boat. Historically, Ahousaht has suffered many issues: rampant alcoholism, sky-high unemployment, and just a few years ago, the community was on the brink of financial collapse. But with strong leadership from within, they've made many changes and have turned the reserve around. Today, Ahousaht is making progress. There are multiple residential projects in development, a traditional health center, and a new high school to keep families at home together. Elected Chief Greg Louie welcomes the group into the community.
I welcome you on behalf of our chiefs, our Tyee Hutwit. His name is Tyee Makwina. He's our top hereditary chief. He's not here right now, but I welcome you on his behalf, and his Muschum. His Muschum is the people, and I welcome you to Ahousaht. I hope you have a great stay.
Perfect.
And a learning experience of who Kuas really are. Kuas is people, us, and we're here to learn from each other.
But in spite of all the recent success here, the limitations placed on Indigenous Canadians makes progress difficult. The chief invites the 6 to his office to show them why.
In front of you here, what I want to show you is I have the Indian Act of 1876. This here is what holds us back from having some of the freedoms you have, really. And it still governs who we are today.
It's a long time ago.
It's a long time ago. What it says is we are wards of the government. Today, we're still wards of the government. To prove that I'm an Indian or a First Nations person, I have to have a status card. I have to have the 659 number. 659 means Ahousaht. That's how they code it. So if this expires,
you're not an Indian no more.
It's always like we are having to prove who we are. We're always having to justify that I'm a First Nations person. And do you have a status card?
No.
Do you have to prove that you're what nationality you are?
No.
Any one of you?
No.
Do you have to do that? Do you have to walk around with this card in your wallet, in your pocket, in your purse? Canada, it says here, has an exclusive legislation authority of Indians and lands reserved for Indians. And this Indian Act tells us who we are, but with the culture of who I am, I know who I am. A word that really is the flavor of the day is reconciliation. What I say to our community is reconciliation to me means that some of the biases that you may have about First Nations people, put them aside and say, look at Ahousaht are really, really, really good people. They're making strides, they're making change. But how can we reconcile? How can we get rid of this? How can we stand together? Because we're not going anywhere. We've always been here.
Right.
And you're probably not going anywhere. You can be a voice for us too.
Day 2 in Ahousaht, their final location of the journey.
Look at that view they got. Holy man, that's $1 million view right there.
Yeah.
Impressed by the development happening here, Dawn, Ashley, and Ross visit some of the new housing construction. It's eye-opening for Ross, who held firm beliefs on Indigenous housing.
They don't paint their houses. They don't fix windows. Yeah, no, this is very nice. This would be just as nice of any town that I've seen the house built, right? So no, they've done a really excellent job.
Come in.
Nearby, Avonlea, Dallas, and Jamie Sue are visiting the home of Tom Paul, one of Ahousaht's strong leaders.
Welcome to my home, yeah.
Tom is a change maker. Recognizing a need, he and his wife, Marcia, started the community's first youth drop-in center on their own.
If you can, save one kid from getting peer pressured into drinking or doing drugs or even suicides, having them kind of thoughts, it's well worth what we do. And it's just, you got to do it.
It's not just the children that have benefited, it's helped Tom as well.
It's been the kids that's really calmed my nature, my way of being, because I didn't treat a lot of people with respect. And probably because, I didn't respect myself. And I went to residential school. Your whole way of being is being taken away from you. I have no control over, what policies that we live under. I know they're unfair. It's just totally unjust. But instead of ranting and raving about what we don't have, and just do the best that we can, and we just keep doing what we can do. And we say it to our kids, is that we don't want you to make the same mistakes we did. We want to be better parents. We want to be better role models. And then it rubs off into the community, to the other kids. Our kids deserve the best. And we'll get there. As I say, one heart at a time.
Soon, the three will have a chance to visit the drop-in center to see the impact for themselves. Day 3 in a house-it. Only 48 hours remain in the group's journey.
That's a nice house.
Ross, Dawn, and Ashley are meeting with Rebecca Atleo, another one of a house-it's strong leaders.
Hi there.
I'm Ross, how are you?
I'm Rebecca.
Hi, I'm Ashley.
A former principal, she's now a house-it's director of education.
So this is my home.
Yeah, this is very nice.
We got it built in 1999.
This is not a government-funded home. Rebecca owns it. She paid off the mortgage last year.
Well, with my home, I'd finished university and I wanted to come back home and work here. So I looked into getting my own mortgage. From the time I started the paperwork, it took 18 months to actual building stage. And I was the first one to get my house in the community through a mortgage.
Yeah.
Today, several members of the community own their own homes. It's a major step towards self-realization.
We want our kids to succeed. We want them to be able to be self-reliant and contributors to the society. It's easy to say, well, go get an education. But, there's so much more to it than that.
We're all Canadians. Are most of the people here proud to be Canadian?
I tend to think, we're here together. We've got to get along together. We're all human beings. We all bleed the same. We've very much got the same struggles in both societies. We've got this very same aspirations to be better than we are today. All those similarities, instead of picking out those little negatives about each other. Hopefully there's going to be creating more of an understanding and an empathy for each other. And I think if we can sit and dialogue with each other and walk in each other's shoes. And I've walked in your guys' shoes and I've lived in that world. And now you've kind of come into my world. You've tasted my food. You've seen where I live. Of course, it's not traditionally, but at least you're seeing a part of what we're about as First Nations people.
Oh, wow, skate park right on the water, eh?
Meanwhile, Dallas, Avonlea, and Jamie Sue reconnect with Tom Paul, creator of the community's only youth center.
Well, there, folks. Welcome, welcome again. How was your night?
For a location, he and his wife, Marcia, repurposed an old abandoned school.
This was pretty close to residential school. They were called the Indian day schools. The same kind of attitude and mentality, happened to our kids. It's right on reserve, just the
these kids went home every day. So, so I think it was closed in the 80s.
Wow.
Today, Tom's hosting a barbecue for local kids, and he's counting on his visitors for help.
So this is it, and we're gonna get you to work, and if you want to help me, and we'll pack up the barbecue. We've got all the grub here. We'll get that barbecue going. Oh, watch your step.
It's a chance for the group to do more than just observe. They are actively getting involved.
Can I help?
Sure you can. We're building a new foosball table. Are you excited? Awesome.
These kids don't know it yet, but they'll be lifelong friends, and it starts from relationships inside this building, right? So it's nice to see, man.
There you go. Now you got her. Good job.
More hot dogs in there, too, guys.
All 6 of the participants end the day at a potlatch to commemorate the anniversary of a community member's passing. This traditional celebration of life is so powerful, it's hard to imagine they were banned by the government for decades. For the 6 travelers, it is a fitting way to end their journey. But there is still one last critical step to come. It's the final day of the group's 4-week journey. But before going home, they will experience a traditional ceremony. Dave Frank and Mary Donahue, 2 of Ahousa's spiritual leaders, invite them to the beach to help provide closure.
Our teaching is that our body's like a canoe, and our soul sits in there, coaxing. Creator's right here, right now. Got that little breeze blowing on it. You feel it. So today, we want you to get inside your canoe. Ask your Creator to help you. And I ask you to look inside yourself. And don't be surprised if things start coming up as you're working.
Do not analyze what's going on or what's happening to you. Just go with it. Chew.
We're starting now.
Out of respect for the ceremony, the 6 participants must remove their microphones, and cameras are not allowed.
Would you turn that camera off, please? We're going to start sacred ceremony.
After the ceremony, the 6 gather to discuss their takeaways from this once-in-a-lifetime experience.
I came in here knowing zilch about Indigenous people. I came in here thinking that they were given everything from their housing to their schooling, you know, to all these perks. But the little perks that they do have is insubstantial to the cons that they've been dealing with. I've learned that I can be a voice for Aboriginal people, even though that my skin is white. I can be a lot more than what I was 28 days ago, to say the least.
There's a whole chapter of my heritage from Canada that I just learned about. I just feel like this is the beginning for me, and I want to go back to school. I want to be able to either be a therapist or counselor or something like that, or at least an advocate, because they're my people too.
I want to make sure that my kids are raised with that understanding that you don't judge people just based on their yard or based on the education that they had.
Some may leave here not wanting to do anything, but it's up to us as individuals to do what we feel like we need to do. Now I can educate people at home, maybe smarten some people up.
But not everyone's views have undergone a transformation.
Coming into this thing, I didn't think of all Indigenous people as being a bunch of lazy, good-for-nothing drunks. I can't say that my feelings toward Indigenous people have gotten better or worse. I don't think they were bad to start with.
I came on this trip with a wealth of knowledge. I'm leaving with a wealth of knowledge. And I'm glad these young people have learned something, because guess what? I've probably got another 25 years of living. These guys hopefully have another 50 years of living. So guess what? They got 25 years further down the line to do something with the knowledge that they've got.
If these guys don't want to change their minds, that's completely up to them. You know, that's, I'm not going to hate on them. I'm not going to do that. But I at least get to say, you know what? I did educate myself. I did see it. I do understand it. I can empathize.
But I want to be part of the solution, and I don't want to be part of the problem. And you can also classify the problem as silence. The fact that there's 6 of us sitting here talking about it right now is a really good step forward, I feel. And if that can just spark a little bit of momentum to other people, you know, who knows?
Last season on First Contact.
Helps if I turn my mic on. Siguli Swagwag, Galahindi Niogat, Wagi Sliwagi, Niwak Deloda. That was the first season of First Contact, and it's interesting. And Colonel Zach, you may have been on to something when you're talking about the age that we're looking at as the we're watching this, the older guy. One thing that was brought up was the systemic racism, and the older guy in this series had this defensive attitude that he was being called a racist when systemic racism was being discussed, and that for me seems a bit narcissistic, as no one in that series addressed him as a racist person per se, and you know, at least not in a direct sense, and not until he started to kind of come across this way. Systemic racism is about the colonial systems, like our healthcare system, for example, where one man can wait in an emergency room for over 30 hours before dying, waiting for a treatable ailment to be addressed. That's crazy. Or a woman who records nurses yelling at her, calling her names while she dies in front of them, and streams it live to the internet. Or our children who are denied health care because they're indigenous. And there's a battle between the local and the provincial and the federal governments as to who's going to fund that care. And then we have our legal system, where we have had 11 indigenous people killed in the last month by police with no accountability. Or a woman who's calling for help and ending up having an officer repeatedly punch her in the face, breaking her nose and cracking her cheekbones, trying to get help for her daughter. And we have an education system where funding for Indigenous education gets a fraction of what non-Indigenous education systems get. And the focus of educating Indigenous students leans more towards manual labor than professional careers like lawyers and doctors and professionals of that kind. So systemic racism is not about individuals. It's about systems that fail us due to stereotypes of indigenous peoples. It's about a collective that's built in within to the system that fails us. And so for them to take that as a direct point of view for one individual really is just narcissistic and defensive. And I don't believe that anyone in that series was pointing any kind of fingers at this guy. So, not to bring, you're just catching us right at the end. Um, However, the VOD will be up as soon as the stream is, as soon as we raid out somewhere. If you wanted to see today, what we're questioning is what white people think of indigenous peoples, and there's a 3-part series of season 1 that we just watched, where we watched 6 settlers take 4 weeks into visiting various indigenous communities and learning about our lifestyles as well as our struggles and our achievements. And some of them came back, for the most part, most of them came back enlightened and have their preconceived notions of indigenous people is kind of shattered. And so now they have a new perspective, which is an awesome thing to do. You know, even if one or two of them don't change their minds, the fact that we have even, even if we could get some of them, which we did, three-quarters of the people in this series actually had uh, uh, a learning experience and something that will take them that they will take back with them to when they go home and hopefully share their experiences with their family and their friends and let people understand that indigenous people are not what the mainstream society see us as. And we can break those stereotypes. You know, part of what I think is, I mentioned this earlier, is that what builds up the um, stereotypes is the fact that people look at the world in a very simplistic and face value mentality. So, if they drive downtown and they happen to see two indigenous people who happen to be drunk, well, then we're all drunks. Um, what they don't see are the indigenous people who are working in the doctor's offices, the indigenous people who will become police officers, or the indigenous people who become lawyers, or teachers, university professors. You know, they don't see those people because those people aren't hanging out in the streets. And a lot of times, people don't may not even know that they're standing beside an indigenous person for that matter, uh, because we come in all sizes and shapes and shades. I have cousins who are about as pale as my partner, and blonde hair, blue eyes, but they're indigenous. um, and so someone working beside them or standing beside them would never even know that they were standing by indigenous people. There's this perception that indigenous people don't exist anymore, but we're still here and we're going to continue because we have a very strong will. Some people call us resilient. Um, I think that we're just people who want to continue to live our lives and our with our identities and carry those forward. And we got to stop thinking about each other as colors and start thinking about as each other as cultures. So rather than um, just culture over color. So I am not a redskin. I'm an indigenous person, um, etc. You know, that's the way we got to start thinking of things for the future. So I am going to be back tonight to do our music stream. Um, I had to do. I have to get 7 streams on this channel within 30 days, and I can't even remember when I started. But I think this might be stream 6, and so I have one more stream for this before I can become affiliate. I have the followers, and I think I have the hours in. It's just a matter of me finishing off one more stream at some point, and hopefully um, maybe even tomorrow night. I think there might be a talk we could do. Oh, Don Derek. Hi, Sigoli. Yonko for being here. Thank you so much. If anyone's not following, and Scuba, of course. Let me first of all, I don't even know if this works on this. I still haven't got this stream all set up properly. Uh, but let me do this for Scuba. First of all, um, go Scuba for being here. Yeah, 7 streams. So I've got 6 now done. Um, the thing is, I just don't remember. I don't remember when I started the first one. Um, but I don't. I think it's maybe 2 weeks ago. So I should be fine for getting that next one in. I'm thinking maybe tomorrow because I think there's a speaker who's going to be talking live on indigenous wisdom, if I remember. So if I can get into that, get myself registered and into that before then I'll try to do that and see if I can. It's only an hour long, but it's a talk, and it'll be probably an opportunity for us to ask some questions of her as well. So let me get this one out now. Oh, I gotta wait 58 seconds. Okay. Well, while we're waiting, what I'm gonna do is I'm going to start a version of the Peaceful Warrior. We always do a version end the stream. I say we don't always. We try to always end our stream with a version of the Peaceful Warrior. Um, Today, what I'll do actually is I want to end it instead with a song um, Composey did. Composey did a live learn of a song that is based on a poem I wrote, and it's called "A Beautiful Thing." So I will play her rendition of "The Beautiful Thing" if I can find it. Let's see, is that right?
We're gonna find out what happens.
Okay, yeah. So we'll give that a sec. So I'll do a version of A Beautiful Thing, first of all, being sung by Composy. I'm so honored. Composy's been so sweet to, she did a version of The Peaceful Warrior. She did a collab with me called Through the Eyes of a Child. And then she did this live learn of a poem called A Beautiful Thing. So she's been so open to, to doing these songs for me. And not only that, she learned a Buffy St. Marie song for me. She learned three Ray Zaragoza songs for me. It's just it was like wow, she's really kind of done everything for me. So I so appreciate that she's been open and willing to do that. So let me try this again. I don't know if it's been a minute, but it'll tell me. There we go. And again, Yanko, for being here, Don, and everyone else. Thank you so much. So I will get this going. I'll put in well, I don't really have a rate call, do I? Um, I got kind of a rate call, which I will post in here. So I hope that you all copy this, and we'll look out to see if there's someone we can go see. In the meantime, I'm going to make this actually, I'll make this full screen so that you can um, see her while she's singing. There we go. So let's go. This is Composy uh, doing her rendition of A Beautiful Thing. And this was, by the way, done on the fly. She didn't have time to rehearse. It was a live learn that was done straight at the time I sent it over to her. So way to go, Composy.
We're gonna find out what happens. I feel the softness of a kitten's fur and listen to that affectionate purr. I see it playfully chase a string and think life is a beautiful thing. I feel the heat from the rays of the sun, and the walks in the moonlight are always fun to have a sweetheart who listens to me sing. Life I know is such a beautiful thing. I watch the wings spread in the sky as its feathered arms carry it so high. And how about the happiness a newborn brings? Can life not at times kitten's fur and listen to its affectionate purr. I see it playfully chase a string and think life is a beautiful thing. Lyrics by Galiandi.
And right, we're talking about
Alert,
left and right.
alert.
Oh,
Raiders
Dark
have
Native
come
voice.
to cut you with knives and burn down your home.
Thank you very
Alert,
much for the raid,
alert.
Dark Native voice.
Raiders have come to
Hello,
cut
Raiders.
you with knives
Welcome,
and burn
welcome
down
in.
your home.
Welcome in, Raiders. I hope you're all having a lovely day. We're having a wonderful day here. It's good to see you. Thank you very much for the raid, Dark Native. That's incredibly kind of you. I hope you're doing well. I hope you had a really good stream. All is well.